Actually, I take that back. One time, randomly in the middle of construction when no one was supposed to be in here, it was also locked. So over here right now, again, we have not gotten the final configuration uploaded.
We're going to dismiss ourselves.
Yep.
I think you all are in good hands.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
But you have a touchscreen here that someone has put a lovely piece of cardstock over, and then the touchscreen over there. When we do the training in here in just a moment, I will upload the changes that I made, and it will mirror again the theater. Any questions over everything we've just gone over? I know it's a lot of information, a lot of nuts and bolts of things, and we haven't even touched. How do I turn the lights on?
Okay. I'm assuming this is on the same kind of thing that's over there where I have to go in, unlock the controls to be able to operate any of the lights via the board.
Yeah. We prefer to do it that way just to make sure that it is a manual step of knowing I want control from here. You don't want someone during whatever coming in here and turning this board on and changing the state because they didn't realize that just turning that on would do that. Because that has happened a lot. Something that came up in a punch list, and I just want to make sure to reiterate, this is an existing fader wing. This was not new. The sliders here, we can still get you little caps for those. But this was just something that it didn't make sense to take this away considering you had it. It's still compatible with the new board. Mm-hmm. The other board has an integrated fader wing. So. I don't remember if you had 2 monitors for over here or if it was just supposed to be the one, but this console can take another monitor output, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm assuming since we didn't set it up that it
Yeah.
was supplied with one.
Because the other board has 2.
The other board has
There's
2.
one of those monitors that's not working though.
Okay.
If we're going to more of a technical, then I will run and get the
Yeah,
tripod.
let's see, what time is it now?
It's 9:21.
It's only 9:21. You're making great time. Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's take a quick 10-minute break so I can upload the changes over here, and then we'll dive into the training of this board here.
Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty.
Oh, one thing before we do that I forgot to point out. When I mentioned those display ports, again, those are still where they were, and they were spec'd out to have lights hung from them. But they cut off access to them, so those were hung using I believe this side was done, I think both were done using a lift, but I don't know if that side is accessible with a lift now, or if either is really, because
Yeah.
chairs are now there, so, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
But those lights do function.
Alright. Cool.
Expand on the sections that we really want more in depth. But everything I'm covering here, one, the workbook has completely laid out with examples. They also have videos to go along with the entire workbook.
Okay.
So, you know, if this really gets to that point where we're kind of, the brain is full, we can't, okay, well, what do I just need to know to get me where I need to get for, you know, the show this weekend or, you know, the next couple months, and then circle back around. That information is there. I just like to be upfront with that.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Because I know how daunting hearing you have an 8-hour training session today
Yeah.
can be.
Especially with my wife going hopefully into labor tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot you weren't up here for that conversation.
Yeah. And a show in 2 days.
Yeah.
Huh. What stress? Never been stressed ever.
I don't know. I'm excited though because my show choir season is over. Jericho's not. But mine is. I'm gonna wheel this chair.
Oh, that's right. I'm not connected to Wi-Fi, and so
Yeah.
this spot right here has the worst reception. Let me walk out here so this sends real fast.
I mean, I'm excited to see what our two departments look like after spring break.
Yeah.
As we both lose our motivation at the same time.
Yeah. I got some texts this morning. Yeah.
Okay. What else?
And Sam has work tonight, but should be here tomorrow.
Okay.
And I'm not very happy about any of that. But, and we don't have Miss Taylor tonight either, do we?
No.
Is it possible to have August stage events on, let Rowan be ASM backstage?
I can get some
Okay, that's cool. I need at least one person back. And I'd like to run with Big Red tonight.
You're on a MacBook, right?
Yes.
We would just be keeping it closed when house is open and then opening.
You could always just airdrop this to you, actually. That'd probably be the easier way, because
Oh yeah, for sure.
this won't send.
Make sure my airdrop's on. I'm so sorry. I have to run to my office.
No problem.
I think I got a parent call.
My airdrop should be on now.
Jason's
Maybe
MacBook
Lori.
Air.
I don't recognize the number.
Parrish.
I don't think Lori would call. I think Lori would just wait for Will to text me. I'm just hoping it's not
Sent.
Constance's parent.
Open it up. Yep, got it.
This is cool.
Great.
Oh, Constance is really cool. I love Constance.
No, but is. what
I
was
don't know because Constance was absent on Friday and no one knew,
Alrighty.
which is not typical.
All right. So, you do have two different consoles for each space. They are virtually identical. However, the big difference between them is that the console in your auditorium has no fader wing on the left side, and the one in the in the theater has a fader wing permanently attached on the left side of the console. Besides that, they are completely identical. And because, again, you have this external fader wing that was existing for your old console, it still works. So, in theory, you kind of actually have the same. Actually, over in the theater, you also have an external fader wing sitting in a box in the booth right now. So,
Yep.
you could plug that in, and you could have two fader wings, or whatever you want. Want to point that out. Looking at the physical console itself, I'm going to go ahead and turn on this front row lights just so we can see the console a little better. That's
Thank you.
How's that look on there? Good. Okay. Looking at the face of the console, I'm going to move this light out of the way temporarily. You have a power button in the top right. The power button can be used to both power the console on and power it off. When you press it to power it off, it's actually going through the software and doing an actual shutdown procedure. It's not just killing power. So, just so you know, you can do it that way. A lot of people, and there have been different lighting consoles that have had that be a hard off button and it didn't actually save your show or anything. That is going through the proper shutdown procedure, so don't need to be worried about that. You have a USB drive here, or port here, that you can plug in a flash drive or, some USB devices, whatever it might be, mouse, keyboard, that will not provide power to your phone. Don't try to charge your phone on this.
Mm-hmm.
On the next to that, you have 4 encoders. Those encoders, there are boxes on the monitor at the bottom of the screen that those correspond to. So when we get into the programming part of this later, that's how we'll know to use this. Sorry, I forgot to charge my
No, you're
iPad
good.
that I go off of for this.
With if you power down, is there like an autosave feature?
So it actually it does not do an autosave, but it saves it. Even if you completely shut the board down, it's actually going to keep that open show file there.
Mhm.
It won't save it to the hard drive or to the solid state drive, but it will not clear its show file unless you do something like update the software, which it prompts you, hey, make sure you save your changes before you do this because we're going to dump that. So unless this console sat off for a long time, I'd say a year or more, without a saved show, you're going to open it up and it's going to go to the show that was previously open.
Gotcha.
Moving down from the encoders, what we have are 3 sections of the console, of the keypads here that we'll use when we're programming here. We kind of work on a left to right fashion. So over here is all of your targets. You have things like Q. Some of the palettes we'll go over. Those are where you can assign preset positions for moving light or preset colors. Submasters, those are all located in this section. Then you just have the number pad. Those you will identify what queue you're trying to work with, what palette you're working with, what submaster, and then you have your modifiers on the right side. How bright is the light going to be? Is it going to be... are you trying to work with multiple different lights? That's going to be in your modifiers. Everything in this top right section, that's all display and navigation for the screen itself. Just getting around, getting the information you need to see, condensing it down if you need less information. Everything above these three rows here, you have just some buttons that didn't really fit in any of those categories. They have them somewhat grouped, so you have a copy to and a recall from button nearby each other. We'll point out these buttons as we go to use those. In the very, very top right, you have a live, blind, and a stage button. Live is... These all indicate what mode the console is currently working in. Live means when you type in the channel number, which we'll get to, it's going to turn on that light out there right now and you'll see it. Mm-hmm. Blind is an editing view. You don't have to record your saves in blind. It automatically does that. But it doesn't actually mean that you're going to, at that point in time, see that. So, means you're doing it blind. Mm-hmm. Stage is for a feature this console does. It's not included with the installation, but it is something that someone could go through and do. There's a visualizer software built into the console now, and that stage function is used for that, so that you can help. You can build the stage in 3D and hang your lights virtually, and that way you can see
what it would look like.
It's very useful for a moving light rig or something like that. If you're using a lot of static fixtures in a situation like this space, or even the auditorium or the theater, you're probably better off just looking at what you actually have. Down here below the encoders, there are 6 buttons that change the function of those encoders. It will change what these boxes here on this display indicate. Right now I hit focus, so now that changes this to pan and tilt for the moving lights that are hanging off of the display ports, or whatever we're calling those now. So we'll get into using those, and then you have a displays button which will bring up your file browser over here on the top left. Moving over here, you have some shortcut keys. Again, we'll get to using some of these, but they went ahead and gave us 12 keys that people would need to typically press multiple buttons to get the go to Q0 is now just one button, and then you hit enter and you go to the before Q1, doing it that way. So again, we'll kind of go over these through the workbook. Next to that, you have your master playback faders. General rule of thumb, leave those 2 faders all the way up. You have a stop button and a play button. I'm going to call this a go button. It used to say go, they changed it to being a play button, but every stage manager in the world will say go. So, any questions over the front? Oh, you have a level wheel and then an effect wheel. We'll go over the effect wheel way later, but we'll go over the level wheel a lot more throughout the training. I'm going to just go ahead and kind of... we're not going to get a good view with the camera. On the back of the console, it's going to look very similar to a PC motherboard, because it is. You have some USB ports on there. You have some display outputs. They are using DisplayPort, so provided with the console, they gave us DisplayPort to DVI adapters. But if you wanted to add a second monitor, my recommendation would be just find a DisplayPort monitor. Cutting out your adapters really helps. You have 2 network ports. One of them is currently not blocked, but capped. That is currently not configured in the software because it's meant to be used for if you need to plug in to talk to the sound system, if you want to have the boards be able to see each other for queuing purposes or something like that. So its IP address is not set. It's all something that if you're going to use that, ETC is a great resource to call them and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. What should I set? What should I enable, disable, so on and so forth. The one that is being used is, again, our way of communicating to the entire lighting system for the space we're in. Again, the 2 lighting systems don't touch. On the back, you also have 4 dedicated DMX outputs that are just... what I would do is if someone ever actually wanted to use those 3 movers that have been sitting there, something like that scenario, or you want to take this board and bring it to your show choir competition or something, you could save yourself some headache of, okay, do I need network queue? Do I need like a network switch and all that? You just can plug in directly to your rig there.
Okay.
Any questions over just the physical board itself?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Each board was supplied with a dust cover. Just throw that on top there when you're done. They're snug, form fitted, so just will help keep the board clean and save the buttons wearing out from just dust buildup in those key switches over time. Okay. Oh, the power adapter for the, I always forget to point this out. It's a new thing. The power cord for this is a locking cable. So when you do ever need to unplug that, pull back that red tab and then pull it. That's new.
So it can't come automatic, accidentally on.
Yep. There is a power switch on the back as well. That power switch will not go through the shutdown process. That's just a
hard shutdown.
Yeah, don't do it that way. Unless you're sitting there and the board's completely frozen and you have no other choice, then that's pretty much.
Would best practice say that if we're not here and somebody's trying to run an event and they don't know how to do proper shutdown, that they just leave it and let the timeout?
Yes. Yeah, that
But if they're just I don't know how to do that, we just tell them, just leave it, it'll time out.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah, if they know how to, at the very least, get it to whatever they, either everything out or just leave the house lights on. Whatever you want to tell them, that would probably be the safest way.
I guess, yeah,
that's the shutdown procedure. So and we'll just go through this real fast. Again, I hit the power button. I could grab my mouse. I could use this as a touchscreen. I could hit OK, or I could just hit the power button a second time. It goes through the shutdown. That's all. All it takes. Now we'll have to wait. Don't be alarmed when it boots up. There's a little BIOS speaker that if there were a problem, maybe the RAM got unseated or had an issue, it would then beep to tell you what that error is. I had one person get very upset that there's a BIOS speaker in there. It's like, that's annoying. I was like, well, you're... Okay.
Sorry about you.
I was like, you're never going to hear that when it's critical? Like, when you're in a show or something, because your board should be on? I don't know. But yeah, I guess if your board's off and the house is fully open, and I guess be aware.
Maybe the two guys up there sitting.
Cough real loud. Cover it up. I don't know.
Yeah. Perfect.
It's one of those that just it broke my brain for that moment. I was like, why is this your top priority? He was like, can you open it up and take that out? No. I was like, I lied to him. I was like, no, I can't. I totally could. No.
Should we be powering this down daily?
I would recommend powering it down daily.
Okay. Perfect.
I would recommend not turning this board on until it is needed. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
Ideally, here we should be in a state moving forward where the button stations and the touchscreens do everything that you need to do day to day.
So we can do our house lights, blah, 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 and just leave that off.
Yep, and this should not need to be on until you're having a performance or rehearsal, whatever. One thing that this board did, and guilty of it, the reason this did it, right now this booted into what we call the shell. It's boot screen, splash screen, whatever. We would get to this later in the training, but hey, we're here now. Primary is the mode that we want to always boot this board into. Backup, client, those are both multi-console options. So if you had a second board, backup would literally just sit there and wait for the first board to go offline, and this would take over. Client allows you to actually utilize this board. You can turn lights on and off, but it's not the primary console in that system. Offline puts you in primary, but you're not actually going to output any light ever. Under settings, the reason that did that is because right now, when I was doing software updates a while ago, I had checked that box that said open in shell. By default, that stays off, so that way no one gets tempted to get in there. So we'll go through the settings here later. A lot of them will make a lot more sense once we have a better understanding of everything from there. And we need to change the clock when we do that. But so I'll make sure that does not boot into that screen. We'll double check the the theater. I'm set up all day. We'll double check the theater to make sure that that's not doing that as well. Because what you want is when you turn the board on, here you go.
Yeah.
Some things about the display. At the top here, you have your show file that is currently open. Right now, it's just labeled Auditorium LEDs because we needed to give it a name. The star next to it means that there's unsafe changes. Again, I just turned the board off and turned it back on. It is already opened with unsafe changes, meaning stuff that I had previously changed never got saved to the solid state drive in there. However, it remembers those changes. We would have to completely clear the CMOS and everything for all that to go away. You have a clock in the top right. Yes, it's very wrong. We'll fix that. One important thing for both of these spaces that you'll kind of want to just double check is this parked channels up here. This is something that we have actively done for you. What parked channels means is it means that there is a channel that is just set to an intensity, and that will always be that intensity. No queue, no submaster, no blackout, no nothing will override that. What we do that for is we over here in the auditorium is those circuits that we've plugged in the LED fixtures to, we park those at full. So that way we have switched them on from the console so we know that they're powered, but we've just parked them on, and we don't want anything to accidentally turn them off because every fixture has a boot cycle. And so if you were to turn them off when you go to a blackout or, something like that, when you go to your next scene, you're waiting for everything to turn back on, and they're going to turn on at different rates. So that is why we have a parked channel. We'll get into how we did that and what channels should be parked, but when you're running a show, you should make sure that that's up in that screen. And if we had a second screen, it's on every monitor. There's also this park button here that should be illuminated green to indicate that there are parked channels. Any questions over that? Great. Okay. I know I just emailed you sent you the workbook. I do like to work slightly out of order for the workbook because it has us just dive right into turning on light or programming lights and then turning them on before we get to how do I even work around the software. It's the one thing I work out of order on. So right now I'm currently on page 11 of that manual. And actually I'm going to skip down to page 12 because 11 we'll get back to when we are utilizing channels. On your monitor, there's going to be a lot of clever names. The Central Information Area, or the CIA, is down here at the bottom. By default, it is set to your browser being the favorite, and almost no one ever changes that. That's indicated by that gold star there. Changes what is down here when you hit that display button by default. I would never change it. You have to go through a lot of steps to change it, so don't worry. It's not going to happen accidentally, and it's not going to happen by someone being like, I really want to change it. They're going to really have to want that. In the browser, if I click on File to expand that, you see some pretty normal options for file management. You have Save. That's going to save over the current show file in the same folder, on the same file directory. Below that, you have Save As, where you can save it to a different location. You can move it to a folder. You can change its name. So right now, if I click on Save As, Show File Archive just means anything that's saved on the board itself. If I plugged in my flash drive, that would show up with the flash drive name, and then the file drive would start at E. If you had multiple flash drives, it's just going to keep adding those letters. You can see here under Save As, under the file, it's bolded, and it actually has its own drop down. These boards save every file version, and it keeps those file versions. You can see that they are tiny in size, so you don't have to worry too much about having too many files saved. It would take you years to fill this board. Now, if you're sitting there every day and saving a version every day, yeah, you might get there faster. If you're doing it multiple times a day, you might get there faster. But just know that it saves all of those, and it timestamps them. So, one, setting the time on the board is slightly important, but two, it does save those copies for you.
Do you think there's a time frame, especially in the theater, if we're recording multiple shows worth? Do you think there's a time frame where we should every 3 years or whatever go through and
Yeah.
clear out old shows.
Yeah, and there's actually a very simple way to offload those to a flash drive. If you really want to be kind of a hoarder there of everything, in case maybe you redo a show and you just really want to. There's, you can save them to a Google Drive and then later pull them back and re-upload them. Again, the show files are so small.
Yeah.
So
That's why I said like every 3 years.
yeah,
How big is the SSD those are getting saved on?
I used to know that, but I feel like if I tell you the number now, I'm gonna be wrong.
Are we thinking in gigabytes or terabytes?
I'm thinking in gigabytes. I'm thinking
Okay.
it's probably.
like a 256.
I'd say that's probably.
512.
I think it's probably more close to 120 to 256, something in that range. Again, our files are 0.05 megabytes
Yeah.
typically, so yeah, they don't need to go too large with that size.
Sure.
You can open existing show files. Again, I could do all this with the mouse, but touchscreen. I could open an older version of the same show file if I needed to, for any reason. If I want to open the newest one, it's always going to be the bolded one that is there. It's going to be the most recent show file, and to open it, all you do is just double click it. Let's quickly do a save. So, 2 ways to save. I could just click save, and it would say, do you want to save? Yes, no. A shortcut to save is shift update. That's going to be your best friend during tech rehearsals. Is just pressing and holding that shift button and hitting update. And again, it just runs through basically Control S, more or less, in any other type of file. During a tech rehearsal, I wouldn't be surprised that every time you go to take a break, just do a quick shift update. You never know. The failure rates on these are so low compared to back in the day when these were running off of floppy disks, but you never know. If I go to open a show file, even though I have this one already open, it's going to give you options of what do you want to open. Do you want to open the cues from that show file? Do you want to open the patch? There's a lot of options in there. But the big thing that I like to just say is just go ahead and open if you're opening a show file, you probably want to open everything. For you, you want to include that park buffer, which will include what was already parked when that show file was last opened, which is probably going to be all the relays that you need for.
Is there a way to default that?
Once you click it, it should stay. No, it does not. No.
Just remember.
Just remember. The good news here is the way that we've programmed both of these. We've moved everything that you should need all of the time, at least from the installation. We've moved those to a channel 501 and 502, I believe. I'll verify. I know over here it's definitely 501. Sorry, 901. 901 and 902. I'm gonna keep doing it. We've set those aside so that it's a little bit easier to remember that those numbers. So, and when we do have them parked, they have that capital P in the bottom left corner to indicate that those are parked. Again, the board likes to give you 1,000 ways to know. Moving down here through the file management. Okay, I'm just going to use the mouse. I was trying to do this so that I didn't have to do, this and talk away from the camera, but you also have merge. What merge does is it actually takes 2 different show files and you can, merge different attributes from each. Basically what you would do is the show file that you're in, what do you want to bring in from a different show file? Do you want to bring cues? Do you want to bring the patch information? It's a very seldom use case that you'll ever need it, but it's there. If you ever were to need to do that, it is there. Opening a new show file Probably something I would not actually recommend doing. What a new show file does is it completely... it's perfectly where I need to stand. It erases all of the information in the show. All of your patch information, all of your queues, everything. Since we're utilizing LEDs, since we're utilizing parked channels and all of that, I seldom find myself recommending places to open a new show file. What I typically recommend is take a show file, save that as your base file, and when you want to start a new show file for the show choir season, for the next theater performance, whatever it might be, open that base file, save as, name it the show, and start from there.
Okay.
Just
So
kinda like a
basically-
default template.
A default template.
So you're saying this open right here?
That new right there.
New, okay.
Yeah. We can open that. Do you want to create a new show? Everything's gone. But if I go to Auditorium LEDs and I say I want to open that and include the park buffer, there's everything already patched and programmed.
So open a version
and then
of the
template.
old show, like whatever
Yeah.
we did, and then just
Yeah, I would recommend creating a template and saying that is what you should always start from, instead of just saying, okay, well, I know, we're doing puffs. Okay, then the next show, well, open puffs and then start a new show. Okay, well then we just did Almost Maine. Okay, well, open that one and start a new show. It tends to be cleaner if you are always opening the same file every time.
And can you create like subfolders in here?
Yes. And that's actually the last thing I was going to talk about in the file management. You can create folders. Folders appear first in that browser tree. So everything that's in a folder will appear first, and then all the all the files that have not been saved to a folder. So right now, that Auditorium LEDs file actually has not been saved to a folder.
Gotcha.
So if I create new folder, which we can delete later, that's actually now going to appear before that. So if I keep creating folders, eventually that Auditorium show file is going to be all the way at the bottom. So what I typically do is I typically would say, create a folder that is something like one.template.
Can you show us how to create a template from an existing
Yeah.
show?
Basically what I would do for a template from an existing show, well, here's an option for a selective open. Let me open we'll do a merge, because why not?
We're here.
I have a new file, nothing's in it. If I want to take the patch information, because really what we want from that Auditorium LEDs file, we really just want the patch. But let's also say we probably want the submasters as well. When I hit merge, I just can sit here and select, I want the patch.
oh,
Where's submasters? Fader config. I don't think we need fader config, but submasters. And then I want to include the park buffer, and I want to hit OK. Now all of that information has been carried over from that file to this one, and now I can save this file. And so what I'll do, again, I'll just come over here where I'm not at the mercy of a touchscreen. Create a new folder. I can hit backspace a bunch, or I can hit this label button. It'll come up a lot when we get to labeling things. If you hit label, it will clear out what's already there. I'll call this one.template, or show template. So now that's always going to be at the top of my folder list.
Okay.
And then down here, I'll save into here. You have the option of different file formats. You shouldn't need to worry about it. I would just save it as the augmented file. That's the newest file version that they have moving forward. Unless you were going to pull out one of the boards that you previously had and wanted to use that for whatever reason, then you would want to save it as the ESF2 because those can open that file. So it doesn't really matter, but that's really the reasoning behind that. And then when you get to here, you get to give it a name, and I'm just going to say, show file template. So now, again, my order of operations here, how I would be doing this, is that I would say, I'm trying to remember the shortcuts. Okay, we're not going to do it that way. I would open the show file template, and okay, I want to save this as, or I want to create a show for, I don't know, band concert. You have the option of just saving it as a new show in the show file archive, completely unnested in the folder. My personal pet peeve is doing that, but some people don't mind it. I would just create a new folder, and whether it's by year or by show type, so again, band, concert, orchestra, concert, choir, whatever it might be, I'm just going to call this training. And then,
would you recommend putting the 1 point in front of everything so that it lives at the top?
The one,
or
I
just
would
something
only,
we would want to access.
If you
all the time?
want it at the top, yeah, I would do 1 point. But if not, just alphabetically. It's just going to order it all alphabetically from there.
But arguably, we could each create a folder.
Yeah.
For each of our programs, and just be like, all the different file templates that we need.
Mm-hmm.
Like we could have a band, choir, theater folder. That way no one has to worry about anyone getting into their stuff or...
And then I just labeled this training. And again, the show file name pops up there at the top. I'll go over what I just did there to see that. But now we have all of the channels and everything that we had already assigned. It's in a new file. You don't have to worry about how do I get to this point? Because getting to this point, while not difficult, it's something that I wouldn't personally want to do every time I want to just start programming. Questions? Basically, we've just kind of covered the file management portion of it. The next thing that we'll go over a lot faster here. There are multiple tabs for, a lot of things. But as we work through the board, you will have different tabs open. Right now, tabs 1 and 2, they are always going to have the same number. So tabs 1 and 2 always are open. You have your live summary patched and your PSD, which is your playback status display. That's the channel list and the queue list, pretty much, in the not technical terms that they've given it. But we also have the patch information. We'll go over this later. Submasters. The queue list index is different from the PSD. Important note there. But if I want to open a tab, it's just like using a web browser. You press that plus tab button, and then it tells you what all the tabs that you can open are. We'll go over some of these that we won't get to. There's no harm in opening a tab. It's not like if you open one, you're going to inadvertently ruin your show or brick the console or freeze it, get stuck there and can't close it. I can open any tab. If I don't want that tab there, I can just click on the tab and I can click close tab. I can do all that with the mouse. If you right click the tab, again, it will bring up that menu. The reason I say the numbers will always stay the same, this is unfortunate because all these tabs are currently opened numerically. Let me open a tab that's out of order. Okay, there's 3 and then 13 and then where's 4? I want one that's 4.
Direct select, so on the right.
Yeah.
I stopped caring. Actually, I just wanted to open another tab. When I hit the tab button, the keyboard, by the way, this software could work on or is compatible with just a Windows PC or Mac. So there are keyboard shortcuts. So as I'm going through this training, I'll sometimes, just for sake of not reaching over and hunting down the button over there. This one is very conveniently labeled tab, as it is over here labeled tab. As I tab through them, I went from 1 to 2. I go from 2 to 3. That's why those numbers are important. So just kind of as you're going through it, just know that that's how that's going to.
Is there a way to reorder those so they're in order? Can I drag in?
It's yes. You can reorder them by pressing and holding tab, and then or no, yeah, clicking and dragging. They made that easier for us. You used to have to press and hold tab and hit left or right arrow. That will still work in a multi-monitor situation to move it from one, as a shortcut to move it from one monitor to the next. You used to have to move it to one monitor, then move it back, then move it, so you'd sit there and slowly move things over and then move them back. So with version 3, which is what you're running 3.1, but they've just added click and drag. So another way is if I wanted to get to tab 1, is I can just press and hold tab and press 1 and it'll go there. I can do that over here as well. Tab 12, it will get me to patch tab. If I close out of the patch tab, I pressed escape over here. I could have well, actually over here it would have taken a lot more steps to close a tab. That's one of those few keyboard shortcuts that really comes in handy. If I wanted to open up tab 12, I can just press and hold tab and I can type 12. Helps if I actually type 12. You can actually see it on the monitor there in those tiny red letters that I typed tab 12. And as soon as I release tab, it'll open that tab, even if it has not been opened before. So, okay. Little bit of.
If I want 34, but 34 isn't active at the time, if I hit tab 34, it'll just open that for me.
So, also, that's why those numbers are static, is it kind of, you find the ones that you need. Tab 12 is patch, and I end up using that one a lot.
And then we'll also have a copy of this, which probably has those laid out.
It does not.
Okay.
Because this changes in software all the time.
So
not all the
we
time,
just have
but
to learn them.
it does change. Yeah, when you go to open a tab, it tells you what tab it is, and they tend not to change. But over the years, there have been some that have moved around. So, the last display navigation tool that we utilize here, in this space where we currently have one monitor, it will come in handy a lot, I'm sure. When we've opened a tab, up in the top left, you've had the option, we haven't gone over yet, of opening multiple windows or workspaces. So if right now we've been working in a full workspace, but I could open it to where I have 2 workspaces side by side, stacked on top of each other, however you want that. And then from there, again, I can click on the far left one. I can even resize these windows, so if I wanted to give more space over here, I could do that. Or, this is brand new in this version, or I can click on these and I can start opening, some. If I click that green arrow, it expands the one that it's pointing to. It expands it and takes over the entire screen. This is, not something that I expect everyone to spend a lot of time in, but hey, it's there if you need it. You can also open a complete separate instance of workspaces. So if I just click on one of these 2 other boxes up here, now I can just open up a bunch of different tabs. I could change it to this 9x9 grid, and then when I'm done with it, I can just go back to this. I won't spend a lot of time with this because I feel like it's fairly straightforward, and if you want to sit there and play with it, you'll sit there and play with it, and after 5 minutes you'll go, got it, great. They've used to be stuck with, this is how your monitor looks. I know people who would lay out their numbering based off of, this is what I have. I can't change this. So, your numbers were always with their monitor, and how they would have 30 lights in a row. Well, I'm going to do my numbering in more of like a base 30 style because of that. And it's like, no. You have options.
Mm-hmm.
In this software, if I double click this, I can zoom these out. I can give myself more numbers. I can zoom it in. We'll go over some of that with the queue list because I like to reorder my queue list a little bit. Any questions over navigation? Because now we're going to get into using lights.
Yeah, pretty straightforward.
Okay.
And I know we would use the window in window.
Yeah.
We've done it before because it's good to like have your this with your color. Like if you're trying to choose colors, like have that on the side.
Yeah. So we will take a step back to talk about patch. You shouldn't have to worry too much about the patch for this because, again, we have gone through and already patched things. Now, granted, one of the things we did not do is change you from a traditional, quote-unquote, one-to-one patch to start everything. One-to-one patch means channel 1 means dimmer 1. This will probably be the most...
You want to move the chair later? I'm good.
This will probably be the most nuts and bolts, the most theory or whatever you want to call it type of a section here. Because you have to understand how the board is talking to things before we do anything else. I'm going to say the term channel a whole bunch. Channel means what this board is calling that, that light out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, Mark was one of them, liked with their old dimmer systems, one-to-one. Before, we didn't care what light was plugged into anything. It was just, you plugged the light into circuit 1, and now that's plugged into circuit 1. It didn't matter if it was a spotlight, a floodlight, it didn't matter. It was light. So a one-to-one patch worked really well for that because all you had to know was what is it plugged into.
Mm-hmm.
So I plugged it into 1, bring up 1, done. I plugged it into 12, bring up 12, done. As we've moved to LED, it starts to you can't just do that because now that light has red, green, blue intensity. It might have a strobe. It might have a fan. It might have pan and tilt. If you were to save all of those numbers, it's just going to be all over the place. But what we did, again, mark in mind here, we kept the one-to-one for your dimmers. So you have dimmer numbers starting at 1, and if I bring that up, which right now, again, those LED cap source 4s are currently just running off of line voltage dimming. I need to find which one it is. And again, here's the detriment of one patch. If it's not plugged into it, it doesn't turn on. And you could sit here and go, okay, well, that's not it, that's not it. This does get down to kind of user preference, though. So that one, finally hit one, that is plugged into circuit 5. So that is channel 5. And then I bring that out.
And it is not focused.
I don't know what happened, because we focused...
That is shining on.
We focused everything we focused everything in both spaces. So I don't know what happened between now and then. Contractors getting the house lights weren't in originally when we focused them.
Yeah.
So the ones that are hitting the house lights, that is explained by that.
No, that wasn't a criticism. That was
No,
just
no,
me
I know.
being
I
like,
just-
I don't know why we would
I don't.
light that corner.
It's just frustrating to me because I've been over this 1,000 times, and we actually refocused everything in the theater at one point, and it has come up on our punch list. And I'm just going, I don't know how many times we're going to keep refocusing these lights for. And again, it's like no one knows. No one knows.
I do wonder if it's worth
It's
it to,
curiosity.
like, when we don't have anything pressing, to come in, find what's where, and make a list of like, this through this is all catwalk light.
Yeah, because
This
that
through
information.
this is all.
That information was not included because it was a retrofit job. This was an upgrade to an existing. That was existing in the old drawings, but it didn't get included in any of the new drawings
Yeah,
because
that
it's.
would be.
That way we have to do less, one by one, figuring out what's what.
And again, it was there was a wealth of knowledge here who knew where everything was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I explained it. My girlfriend went here
Oh, okay.
and was Mark's student. And,
Yeah.
So I was very upset when he left because over the years I was like, hey, yeah. He was like, oh, yeah, how's Anna doing? And I was like, oh, she's great. You know. Yeah. Anyway. So, for one in this space, the number is 1 through 192. That's going to all be dimmers. Each rack has 96 circuits in it, so 96 times 2 for this space is 1 through 192. Everything after 192 is going to be LEDs. In here, we started with 201 and 202 for the moving light fixtures. Over in the other space, we started at 300. So there is a slight variance between the two. What we did keep the same, though, is that in here, 301 is the start of our... Helps if I don't do 1 through 30. Let's release that. 301 starts the pars on stage, so that should be the same between the two spaces.
Okay. That's a good note.
Make a note here.
In the
I'm not
patch we
making
also...
extra notes because I'm just going to steal your notes.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just not going to share them with anybody.
Oh, no.
Perfect.
Just kidding. One you said through
That's
192
Never gotten it.
Then we could
was
have another
dimmers.
big
Dimmers,
bump of
yeah.
knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
and then 200s for LEDs.
Yep. And that is for in here.
Yeah,
Specifically, yeah.
and the beginning at 300.
Yep, so 301. So, again, the way I'll give these guys some house lights so that they're not completely in the dark here.
So here's the beginning of that diagram for it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's something to start. So, again, 301 is a channel number. That is a defined number that we have chosen. It doesn't actually mean there is still a quote-unquote physical number at the light that is set so that it knows what to listen for. So if I go to patch and I type in 301 to bring us to channel 301, that is starting with Universe 3, Address 1. Universe, remember all those, what I said, all the gateways up there that are talking over the network and translating that to DMX? That is assigning it to the universe, and then that then goes out to a physical port out on the stage. So that is now just listening for that one universe that it's assigned to. So again, you shouldn't have to change any of this. This isn't something that I would anticipate anyone to change. They could.
Oh, sorry.
perfect time to, well,
Yeah, we check out the house inspector.
I did not enable the, might have to double check that.
Can I go to RTC?
That's what happens when you make the change in upload it and just go, yeah, I'll double check that. That should not have completely overridden.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So it's basically like almost like an IP.
almost, yeah.
Where it's just like
yeah,
it exists in this realm and it's the first one of the third
correct,
realm.
correct. So on the light itself, there is 3-digit code on the back, and right now that one's set to 001. The next one's set to 006, because each of these color changing lights uses 5 channels. One for intensity, one for red, green, blue, and then there's a strobe channel. I don't fully recommend ever utilizing the strobe channel because this board can do a strobe effect better by using one of the effects that we'll get into later. But it is a quick and dirty tool if you need to just say strobe. There's better ways to do it. We'll get into those with the effects later. So that is kind of the patch, kind of rough introduction to it. In the workbook, it goes through examples of how to patch a channel, how to unpatch a channel. When you ever get to that point of needing to add more lights or take away lights or whatever, I would recommend just following along with the example in the workbook and supplement the actual light that you're trying to use. I don't want to dive too far into it because it's set how you need it right now.
Will I be able to get a copy of the workbook?
Yes,
Later.
I've got one,
I've
okay.
emailed that to him, so he has that copy. He can forward that on to you. But yeah, that is, you just kind of have to know what patch is to really understand what we're about to do next. So,
Yeah.
we'll go house to half. We'll do station lockout and then house to half. How about that? We're working here.
Is that Chop?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit down, please.
Someone keeps turning my lights
Sit down,
to
just
yellow.
lay sit down.
We're working here. So, right now, if I want to bring up a light, I type in the channel number. I don't have to preface that. I don't have to hit a channel button to do that. I just start typing the number.
Mediola.
It will fill in on the command line down here on the monitor and start typing channel for you. So right now, I type channel, and then I can type out. I can bring 301 out. I can type at full, enter, and that brings it up to full. If I have now typed in the channel number and I want to change the intensity that of the light I've already been working on to a different intensity, I just can type at and then the intensity. So if I want to do at 50%, I just type at 50, enter. Now it's at 50%. You'll see over here on the monitor, you'll see that is now highlighted in red to indicate that we are doing manual control of that light. You can do multiple lights at one time. So if I do 302 plus 303 at full, enter, that will bring up those two lights at full. Then again, if I type at 5, enter, that will bring them down to 50%. Any time you type just at and then one single digit, it's going to be the tens value.
You'd have to do like 0, 5, to 5.
Yeah, because how many times are you going to do 5%?
Right.
How many times? So that's why that shortcut is the way it is. I can do a range of them, so 301 through 310 at full. So I don't have to keep hitting the at button. And then let's say I wanted to take out one, or I wanted to not control one of them in the center there. So we'll do a different row. 311 through 320 minus 320 minus 315 at full. It did 311 through 320, but it took out 315, so I'm not controlling that one in the center. One of the other more quote-unquote advanced options that we have here is to do an offset. To release these, I'm going to go ahead and do 301 through 320, sneak, enter. That releases control of them. There's no... the release button that is over here does not release. I used to always tell people, oh yeah, here's how you release them, because on an old board there was a release button that did that, and then this button didn't exist. Now this button exists, and it's ruined my terminology. It does not do the same functionality. So we're sneaking it. Those are now no longer highlighted red. They're great. They're just nothing in the intensity column there. If I wanted to do an offset, say I wanted to do every other light, if I type in 301 through 320, down here on the bottom of my monitor, I have a key that says offset. That is a soft key.
Hey, cousin.
Soft keys,
Hey, cousin.
you have 3 ways of doing it. One, with the touchscreen, you can just click that button. You can grab your mouse and click that button, or you can type in the soft key. To do that, you'll see that the 6 buttons up here on the board itself have S1 through S6 written above them. If I press and hold this more SK button and then press S5, that's soft key 5. So there's, again, soft keys 1 through 6. You have to press and hold that more SK button to use the physical button. Now, you'll also see that now there's a layer of white text here and a layer of gray text. I know it's hard to see. If I just press the more SK button, that flips the layer, and the white layer is the active layer. So if I wanted to do evens, I could press and hold more SK and then S2. And now I'm only going to control the even lights in there, and you can see that up here. Now, because they're a floodlight, it's a little harder to see that, but it's now doing every other light. One thing that we can do with this board is that you have a plus and minus percent that's assigned to 10%. I can bring these down by 10% by just pressing the plus and minus 10% buttons. If I want to bring them out, all I have to do is hit out. It self-terminates that command, turns them off. If I want to bring them to full, though, or any other percentage, I have to type in the percentage I want, and then hit enter to do that.
And for full as well.
And for full. So full, enter. The only one that you don't have to is level. Level is defined already in the software to 80%. You can change that, but I would recommend just leaving it at 80%, knowing that that is where that's going to be. But an 80 is just kind of a safe place, gives you some room above, obviously gives you a lot of room below that. That's why it's set at 80. Earlier I did clear sneak enter. That clears out everything and releases everything. If I wanted to just release some of the lights that I have control over, I can select those lights. So 302 through 310, sneak enter, and that will release that range of them. However, sneak is a little bit more robust than just a release tool. I could actually do those 302 through 310 at 50% sneak enter, and actually I'm now just going to manually sneak them up. I know the example I typically give is when you're trying to fool people into, oh yeah, that looks great. Okay, cool. And you're sitting there going, I want to change that and I don't want anyone to notice. You can sneak that change and it be a little bit more discreet. So you also can change the sneak timing. Right, it is a 5-second default time there. But if I said I wanted to bring those out, if I said sneak 0 enter, that will release them, but at a time of 0 seconds. Okay. Any questions over just how I've been typing in?
And so if you wanted to sneak, like if you wanted to sneak over 10, would you do 1 or would you do actually 10?
10.
Okay.
Yeah. What you would actually see when you do that is if I did sneak or full sneak 1, you'll see that it types in time.
Yeah.
Time 1 down there, so there would be your 10-second fade. Sorry, yes, the shorthand for the tens value, that is only for intensity.
Okay.
One thing that we can kind of take a quick peek at here while we don't have any cues recorded or anything. Again, as I'm manually controlling these lights, everything is in red. The ones I have selected have a gold outline. That means that those, again, are selected. You'll notice that 501 through 514, which, by the way, are your house lights, those are in this pale yellow. That means they're controlled from a submaster. The pale yellow means that it's a submaster that is not brought up to full yet. It means that there's a submaster, that submaster 1 is not at its full intensity. If you were to bring that all the way up to full, go ahead and slide that up. It gets a solid yellow.
Gotcha.
And then we can go ahead and bring that down. We can actually bring it down all the way because we've given control over to the button station. So,
That was the 500s.
yeah, 501 through 514.
Those are your submasters.
Those are the house lights.
Oh.
And that includes all of the vestibules as well.
Great.
Okay.
Is this what the auditorium will go down to, or is there a full out on these?
There is a full out on these. I got tired of fighting with the teacher. Yeah, and so I have these set from the touchscreen to 40%.
Cool.
So, because I do need to check why my, I checked it over in the auditorium or the theater before everyone got in there, but in here, the console control button is not doing what it should be doing. So I'll have to double check that
it's
here.
not locking out.
Yeah, it's not giving complete control to this. They're both working simultaneously. So basically, whichever one's yelling the higher number, that's the one that wins.
That would be disastrous during a performance.
It would be. So I need to figure out why that's not working. And it'll take me all of about 5 seconds to figure out why. I'll just quickly talk about groups, and we'll program one group. Groups are literally a quick select of channel numbers. So I've been typing in 301 through 320. If I wanted to condense that down to one keystroke of saying group 1 at full, that's what a group pretty much does. To do that, the easiest way to record a group is just type in the numbers you want, 301 through 320, record, group, and then you give it a number. I could do 1, I could do 11, I could do 55, whatever I want that to be. I could do 301. And then I hit enter. And then if I said, okay, I want to select 301 through 320, group 1, enter, it selected all of those.
Make a note of that too.
Yep.
That's great.
It's a very handy tool. The workbook goes through way more examples of how you can manipulate that group. I'm trying to just save us on our mental bandwidth here of
For sure.
all of the.
Because we could just put all the lights someone would need for an event in here in a group and just say. Group
I mean,
one.
what I would recommend for someone coming in and wanting to use the space and use the submasters, which is actually the next chapter, but groups are really just that quick select tool. That's really for when you're programming your show more than
If I know I want
Yep.
all of these lights on, I just hit group
So
1.
pretty much what I end up doing is
'Cause I
like,
can put groups into a queue, right?
yeah. Well, again, a group is just a selection tool.
Oh, okay, got it.
It is really just a way of shortening down, typing in 301 through 320 all the time. Saying, okay, you could make groups that is, okay, this is all of the front light. This is all of the light that is lighting stage left. This is all of the light that is lighting stage right.
That's good to know.
It's just kind of, it's really your programmer's tool to have.
Now, do those
forward.
groups, is that just in this file?
That is just in the show file.
Gotcha.
Correct.
But we could merge them to other shows.
You can merge them to other show files. Yeah. If you wanted to have a group that is, I mean, everything, you could say, okay, everything minus the house lights, group, 100. And then
I
group
did the
100
same-
at 0.
The same thing we did with new, where that's a thing I can carry over
Correct.
when making a show template. I
Correct.
could also choose in that little thing.
Groups.
Also bring over groups.
Correct.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. And you can do that for literally everything that we're going through. In the examples, what they say is, front light, down light, high sides left, high sides right. The movers could be a group. The psych curtain, in the example that they're going off of, they're assuming that there's a top and a bottom. So you could have a psych that is all of the psych. Then you could have a group that is the top psych and a group that is the bottom row. So you can also have groups that only have part of a different group. Again, it's just taking that information and paring it down to where you can easily call back information. Submasters work very similar to groups. Takes a range of numbers. The difference here is that it actually records the intensity values and the color values assigned when you hit record. So that is how that submaster for the house lights is working. It is a kind of a group, more or less, but it also remembers the intensity value that we recorded with it, which is full. I can record a submaster here of all of these stage lights and assign those to a submaster. So I'll go ahead and hit record sub 3. And it's just going to ask me to confirm that I want to record that, because to save a lot of headache later, we created a bunch of blank submasters so that those faders are already assigned. Otherwise, the steps of doing that is you have to create the submaster, then assign it to a fader. And it just tends to work better that we have a blank submaster. So once it sees that that submaster actually has content in it, that light turns green on that fader. And then I'm going to go ahead and release everything. And then go ahead and bring up that fader. There's your... It was as simple as I set it how I want it. I hit record. I chose the number for the fader I wanted it to be on. And that's set. Go ahead and bring that down. One thing to note with submasters, and specifically with color changing LEDs. If I hit this format button, we'll see the value of the red, green, and blue on your LED fixtures. If I record a submaster, I'm going to do 301 through 320 at full. I'm going to hit the color button here to change my encoders to control color. And you can see that they control red, green, and blue now. If I want to change these to just a blue, nice blue wash, and I record that as sub 4, when I release everything, our default values for everything go back to everything being at 100%, red, green, and blue being at 100. So as you bring up that slider, it's got to work through getting those colors down to 0 so that we're just left with the blue. So as you bring it down, it's a little bit more white. There is one option to work around that, and that is to change the submaster type from a proportional, more or less a simple submaster, you just know that as you're going up and down, everything's proportionally changing to an intensity master. I've had it bite me a couple times for people who don't know what they're doing, because the intensity master changes the color immediately to blue, but it does not ever release that until you've fully brought that down and then also click the button on the submaster to release it and tell it to go back to white. So I've had people have a bunch of different submasters set up that way, that when they go to bring up the other one, well, now it's still green because they never released the green submaster.
Is that what this does here?
Yeah. So let's go ahead and, just for an example, show you that. And then I'll leave that in your guys' hands to decide how you want to use that. So we'll go ahead and 301 through 320, we'll do all red for this one. So again, I'm going to record sub 5. I know I'm not doing RGB now, which is unfortunate, but I think we'll live. Actually, let's just do one that is green as well. So we have 3 examples. Record sub 6. To change those, I need to open up my submaster tab. So I could grab my mouse and I could open the tab window and find that. I could remember what submaster is. I don't remember that. I could also just double click the sub button and that will open the tab associated with it. So now subs 4 through 6, those are my blue, red, and green. I want those to be intensity submasters. I will grab my mouse here. I'll type in sub 4 through 6. Enter. Actually, I can just... Down here at the bottom, you can see what type of a submaster it is. And for this, I want to do intensity. And so now, what we'll see... Sneak enter. Go ahead and bring up 4. It's immediately blue. Now bring up, without bringing that down, bring up 5. It immediately changes that to red. And then bring up 6. It will immediately change it to green. Now bring them all down. Now bring up 4. Now bring up 6.
With blue?
No, actually. So it will remember that, but if you now bring that down, you can actually see it over here. It's still holding the color value from the last one.
Oh yeah, it's blinking here.
So if you press the button to the bottom button on one of the ones that's blinking, it will release that, and now it went to the one that was. It remembers the order that you brought them up in. So if you have a bunch of them, it just gets really kind of confusing. You might get away with having 3 of them and it not being a big deal, but if you want to go bring up your Submaster 3, it's gonna fade up into that, and now bring that back down. It will fade back down, but you have to remember that the next time you go, it gets confusing. I personally don't like it. Some people are fine with it. I don't like it because I don't sit in these spaces long enough to build that muscle memory. So go ahead and clear out those 2. And I'll show you how to delete submasters here in a bit. Because we'll probably want to get rid of a lot of these random examples.
Yeah. And I don't know if I would ever do that, because I would probably prefer to have it on a cue rather than have my color on a slider.
Yeah. A lot of people use their sliders strictly for, I want to get the light on. That's it. I want to see that it is on, and then I will change the color all day. You know.
So I think the submasters, we just want to kind of start a recording. We want to idiot-proof them.
Yeah.
And anyone can come.
Yeah, exactly. You want the lights.
Probably okay saying idiot on the recording.
Okay. Just in case we somehow get off of this page here, there are multiple fader pages. If I press and hold that fader page button, you'll see the fader pages. Right now we are on page 1. That includes, it actually includes page 1 and page 2. So if I go to page 2, we'll actually start with 11. So if I go to page 3, that screen's going to look blank. Well, we know in the show file that we had submasters recorded. So one thing that you could do if this ever looks that way, I would start by pressing the fader page button and make sure that we are on page 1. If you're not there, then we can start asking questions of what happened in the show file. Shouldn't have to worry about it. Shouldn't have to worry about it. Any questions over submasters, groups, individual channel
not
control?
actually. I'm already learning a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm learning stuff.
All right.
And having that workbook will be nice.
Yeah.
Because if I ever, like, going to it for a reference, but also if I ever have, like, downtime, I can just work through stuff.
Yeah. This software is available for free, again, to download through ETC's website. You just go to etcconnect.com. It's under the entertainment controls, which is their fancy way of saying light boards. And all of this is the EOS family. You can download the software and use the version that won't allow you to actually output anything for free. There is an educational bundle if, again, you wanted to, for show choir, utilize the software, but you just want to run it off of a laptop instead of lugging a board around. I don't know what you guys currently use.
We don't have anything, but now there's options, it seems like.
Yeah, so the educational bundle actually does get you the ability to output 2 lines of DMX, 2 universes of DMX, and it gets you a USB to DMX converter. And it's $350, and it's locked in at that price. So all we need from you to do that would be, I forget what requirements are asking for. It used to just be an ID, like scan your ID and a school email, and that was it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've tightened that down a little bit because, guilty of it myself, I was a graduated college student who still had access to my EDU email and said, oh yeah, I'm a student.
I need this.
I need this, and I bought it, and it, saved me about $800.
But that would be good for, like festival performances.
Yeah.
Like if we were trying to do something remote,
Yeah,
we would need the whole board.
You could literally just use a laptop.
correct.
And then just plug in whatever light. Like if you're trying to do an outside
Correct.
something, you can plug in
Now-
whatever lights you're using.
Have fun learning the keyboard shortcuts, but yeah. There's a lot of benefits to having a physical thing right in front of you, but yeah, it works.
Did you say we had old boards?
Yes,
do.
we do.
Those also work.
They will work?
Those also work. They don't go up to the current software version. However, the fixture libraries can be updated for the old software versions.
Okay.
So a light that comes out next year, no, you won't have a software version to go along with it, but you'll have the fixture library to just say, all right, this is what that light does. This is, so the board knows what it does. They'll still work. Though they're dying. I saw it firsthand on one of those two. That they're not in great shape, but they work.
Okay.
That could also be your show choir board.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Um,
That sounds like a next year Jason problem.
yeah, sounds like you got your plate full.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing is cues. As you've kind of figured out from like the submasters we've recorded and all that, a lot of what recording in this board is what you see is what you get. When you hit record, it takes a more or less snapshot of what you have up at the time, and it records it. It's that. So all of the stuff that we've done this far is really just how your building blocks for how to record a cue finally. So I'm going to go ahead and split this monitor display so that we can see on one half of it the channels and on the other half the cue list. So again, I'm going to press and hold tab and hit page over. That's going to move the active tab over to my now second virtual workspace. It's very cramped on this monitor, but hey, it's there. I'm going to go back to live. I'm going to hit format. I'm going from the full table view to a condensed summary view by doing that. And if I wanted to just bring up my house lights, 501 through 514. I'm going to record that as my Q1, just house lights at full. I'm a fan of recording my house lights as Qs, as opposed to just leaving it on the submaster and just saying, oh yeah, bring the submaster. I like to record it. It saves you. It doesn't cost you any time, and it saves you a lot of variability. Mm-hmm. You can record those cue timings in there, so if you know that you want it to be X number of time, you don't have to worry about it. Oh, I don't care that it's on the recording, but Powers and Sons and whoever aren't here, I would never use that show button. That show button right there is a house light look that they wanted recorded for the vestibules to still be on and everything. Do that from your board. They also then had a lockout button, and it's like, okay. I mean, the only time I guess I could see that being used is when you're running the presets off of there. If you're ever running a show off, but I don't like the label of it being called show. I'd call it, something slightly different than show. So, okay, so we'll go ahead. We have the house lights at full. Let's go ahead and set the house lights now to half. We'll do 501 through 514. Again, that's our house lights at 50. Then we'll record that as Q2. And because we're being nice to them and leaving the lights on, I'll record my next cue of everything at 0, but they won't go out. So I just hit at 0, enter, and record. And when I want to go and hit record 3, I can actually just hit record next, and it will go to the next number that's available, and then hit enter. So there's cues 1 through 3 already. The next thing we want to do is we'll want to bring up some stage light. Go ahead and actually have you start typing in things.
Okay.
I can do this all day, but let's go ahead and just deviate from the workbook a little bit so that we see things. Our patch doesn't match theirs. 301 through 305 at full.
Where was 3 at?
It is above 8.
301 through what? I'm sorry.
305. At full, enter. And then go ahead and record 4. Enter. Then next we'll do 306 through 310. Full, enter. Now grab 301 through 310, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change their color. So go ahead and hit enter. 2 ways to change their color. I've been working with those encoder wheels. So again, right now it's red, green, blue. So if you wanted to bring down some red and make it more of a teal color, you could just turn that encoder wheel to the left. And then go ahead and hit record, what's our next cue? 5. Enter. Now, next cue we'll do 311 through 320. Full rem dim. So at full. And then hit this rem dim button up there. That's remainder dim. And when you hit enter, it's going to bring up those 10 that I just told you to and bring out the other, everything else besides that.
So go ahead and hit enter.
Yep. That's just a quick way of saying, okay, I want that on, I want everything else off. Go ahead and hit record.
If you could move this chair.
The 6?
Yep. 6, enter.
Yeah.
Let's do. There's just a couple of examples of just. We haven't adjusted time, we haven't changed any of the labels, we have changed some color in there.
Everything up there, and then I can be like.
Let's say in Q6 we wanted to change the color now, but we still want that to be Q6. Go ahead and type in 311 through 320. Enter. Let's open up our color picker actually so that we can change color just slightly. Go ahead and open it over on this screen. Open a new tab, and that's going to be under touch screen. It's under controls. There you go. With the color picker, you can just drag your mouse and then click. You could drag through it by press and holding, and then, well, 2 different press and holds. So this is one of the ways. What you did was a long press and then started moving. And what that does is it starts wherever the color was, and then it goes towards your mouse cursor.
Okay.
Whichever direction you dragged it. Or if you just do a quick drag and start moving it around, it just is completely following your mouse cursor
Gotcha.
in real time. Does that make any sense? You might want to try it a second time of a long press, and then now move it over to the right. It's following the crosshair relative to where you're just dragging the mouse. It's kind of like almost a trackball type
Okay.
of situation. It's not, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but it's just 2 different ways. If you know gel colors,
Nope.
let's pretend you do.
Okay.
You have gel swatch books built into this board. So Roscoe was kind of the mainstay in America. So if you hit that Roscoe Lux, that was their main line. If you know that you really liked your R27, you could click on R027, and there's that color.
Okay.
Some designers, like me, still know the colors they liked, but it's less important now. You'll also notice all the dots that have now popped up on the color picker. Those assigned to the colors that match the swatch book. So you can mouse over them and you can see what it will tell you is 362. So that's just
Okay.
some people still know those colors. Some designers, if you ever have someone come in and go, okay, yeah, can you match that to a Roscoe 55? That's how you can get to that. It's built in there. Some designers do it. Some don't. So let's go ahead and update the queue that, let's say this is what we want for Q6. Let's go ahead and open up the queue list again. So there's 2 ways to do it. We could record 6 again. That's going to definitively change Q6 to what is actively there. Or we can update Q6, and that's only going to change the things that we have actively changed. It's a very minor difference. But typically the safer path here is to just do an update of the queue that already exists. So if you click the update button, and then you'll see that it's only changing 311 through 320, and then go ahead and hit enter. It just saves a little bit of processing power, and it also makes sure that that's all that we're changing. And so now we've updated Q6, so now if we go back to Q, to do that we can hit that stop button. And then if we hit go, now it'll go to that blue, even though we had originally recorded it as white. And again, just like the submaster, it's fading in. That's
And we can change the durations.
Correct. That's actually the next thing. So there's two ways to change the times. A lot of times you might know what time you want, and then other times you might just go, I'll record it and I'll change it later. Let's start with the change it later because we already have a bunch of keys that we can do that with. Q6, let's say we wanted that to be at a fade time of 2 seconds. All you have to do is type Q6 time, which is in that target, and then 2. And you'll see that time change there, and then hit enter. And there it goes. So now that's done at a 2-second fade. You can change multiple Q times in a row. You could say if you wanted to do Qs 4 through 5 time of 0, you could change both of those to a 0 count. The other type of timing change, let's go to Q5 for it. So type Q5 time. You can do a discrete timing between the intensity up and the intensity down. So anything coming up will happen at a faster rate or a slower rate than the things going down. To do that, you start with the up time. So if you start typing time, you want everything to come up in 2 seconds. Type time 2, time, and then you'll see that you can change the down time to 5 seconds, and then enter. And when you do that, it will show you that as a split number. Now, notice that the downtime actually doesn't have a box around it. That's because, if I remembered, we don't actually have a downtime in that. Nothing is going down in value. So it's telling you, yeah, you have a discrete timing for that. You don't have anything going down. So it's there. If you were to change your queue to have stuff go down,
I see what you're saying.
It would take an update. It would update that information by then.
I see.
You can also label your queues. Really useful. I don't know that it's always useful to label. It's pretty useful to label everyone, but there might be some that you don't. But it's definitely useful to at least label your blackouts, your house queues, something like that. To do that, you just type Q, the number of the queue that you want to label, so Q5, or Qs. Let's do Q6 because I know what Q6 is.
So clear.
Hit clear once, and then hit 6, and then hit the label button up there. Yep, and then using the keyboard you can say upstage rule. And it fills in over there on that side. You can also click over there. I almost never do, but you can. I don't do it enough that I forgot. I just did it. And now that queue is labeled. So as you're going through your queue list, you know what's happening. You could give it a page number in a script. You could give it a song title.
Scene 1,
whatever
Act 2.
whatever you want to give it. Another thing that we can do with queue numbering is we can insert a queue between 2 different queues. Say we realize we need a queue between 4 and 5. So what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and let's bring up let's go to Q4 first. So go to Q4, enter, and that's going to just bring us back to Q4. It's going to adjust everything the way it needs to be. Let's go ahead and bring up 351 through 359 at full.
Enter.
Enter. There's your psych lights. Let's go ahead and change those to a red.
So you have to hit the color button.
The color button's already selected.
So I just take these out?
Yeah, you need to take out the green and the blue. And then go ahead and hit record. And then what we want to do is record that as 4.5.
Did you get it?
Enter.
So does this no longer require you to double enter to record a queue?
You only have to double enter if you're recording over a queue. Yep. So then let's go ahead and go back into Q4.
Is that this?
Yep. And let's go back one more so we can see Q3. Now, let's go ahead and hit go. And then go ahead and hit go again. We'll just jump the gun a little there on the timing. And then we'll hit go again. Now, remember, before this point, we never had that psych up. That's because we are in a mode called tracking. It's indicated right here up on the top left. That's the default. That's the way the industry's moving. A lot of people like tracking. Basically, tracking requires you to always tell a light to go off if you told it to go on. So right now, we've never told those psych lights to go off. So we went back, inserted them in a queue before. Now they've never been told to go off. So in Q5, if you didn't want them in there, type in 351 3359 at 0, enter, and then update. Enter will update Q5.
Update Q5.
You actually can just hit update and then enter, and it will do that for you. Remember that timing, that down timing we did earlier? Mm-hmm. It now actually has value to it. So,
I see.
So now, if we go back a queue, now we can see that discrete timing. If we hit go, we'll see those come up a lot faster than everything in the back goes down.
I see.
Any questions over that?
No, it's a lot of information, but it's all digestible for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see. That lunch period's coming up, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
About
Probably,
4 minutes.
probably a really good spot for a break then.
Yeah.
Alright.
'Cause, yeah, then we get into using your movers. That in here you have just 2 hanging off the side.
Uh-huh.
Over there you have a couple more.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break then. Feeling good?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Are you learning a lot?
I'm learning a lot.
How long do you want for lunch?
So, when we left, we were talking about how to record cues. We went through and kind of talked on playing back cues. Your 2 main functions are going to be the go button here and then the stop button. The stop button also acts as a back button, as we've kind of seen that happen throughout this. When we're going between a queue, if I put us back in console control, hey, look at that again. Oh yeah, and for whatever reason, it's only working with the house lights, where the house lights are having different control than the button stations. Oh, it also helps if I bring down the house light slider. Maybe not.
No, let him suffer.
There's that. It'll help some kids now. If I'm going to my next queue and I hit that stop button, it's going to stop that queue's transition right wherever I stopped. At that point, if I hit the play button again, if I hit go, we will just continue with the timing that we've already started. Right now we're 34% of the way through. It'll just keep going with the normal time. If I stop and I hit it a second time, we're going to go back to the previous queue, and that's just going to happen over the course of, the default is 2 seconds. You can change that timing, however, this is typically something that if you're already doing that, you're not too worried about the timing.
Yeah. And is that, like, with the back button, I just want to make sure and have ideas right in my head. Let's say that somebody hits go, and it was too soon before a call.
Yeah.
Can they just quickly hit that back button twice to hopefully cancel it out before it gets too far?
Yeah. So if you do, you can kind of do that and just make sure. Yeah.
So if we're just like, nope, they can like quickly hit it twice and cool.
Noted.
Yeah, I was just wondering, just for the show, if someone actually goes too fast.
I have a couple of them who jump.
Yeah.
So, we've also used the go to queue function a couple times. Go to queue is useful for just programming, going to the next queue. So if jumping around out of order completely. Now the go to queue also has its own time of 5 seconds. You can change that time. So if I say go to queue 4 time 0, it'll just jump to Q4.
Okay. So if somebody like jumps ahead in something, I can just quickly be like, go to Q7. Let's just keep up with it.
Yeah. If you wanted to go with the queue timing that's recorded, you could hit go to Q. We'll go to Q6, and then I hit time, and when I hit enter, it'll go at a 2-second fade.
Cool.
So if I just hit time, it takes the timing from the queue. We've also used go to queue out and go to queue 0. Go to queue 0 is this button right here. Just hit that and then enter. It's all in one button, and it's done.
Which one was that again?
It's right up here. Go to queue 0.
Oh, I see it.
And then the other button, if I go to queue 6, and then I hit go to queue out, enter. They both do functionally the same thing. They're the difference is that go to queue out is actually resetting it completely to before Q1, and go to queue 0 is only taking the intensity down. So any of the color is still set the same way that it was when you hit go to queue 0. If you had those moving lights pointed at anything, those would stay exactly where they were pointed when you hit go to queue 0.
So we would want to use go to Q0 more than go to Q out.
I actually personally do it the opposite way. I do go to queue out because that just completely resets it.
Like
if you're in the middle of, if you want to just get yourself a quick blackout while you're queuing, go to queue 0 would be better.
I guess I'm wondering, like, during a show, like, we're getting set for pre-show.
Go to queue out. Go to queue out would be that.
Because that's going to make it start fresh from
like if you had a
one.
show on
Always-
Friday,
it's-
you would reset.
It's always going
Yeah.
to start the same way. Go to queue 0, it would start. It
From
would start
wherever you left
however
off.
you had things set before.
Okay.
So
like if it's programmed
you had
to
the
change
movers-
intensity between cues,
Correct.
it would just play whatever was there.
correct, yeah.
Okay. Got it.
All right. The other thing for skipping cues, I find this one more useful personally, because it gets your board op to not have to sit there and wait to just hit a different button than normal. Let's say you wanted to go to Q4 next. Let's pretend we're in Q1. And okay, we just need to go to Q4 next, but we don't know when that's fully gonna be. We could hit go to Q4 and then they'd hit enter. The other option is to hit Q4 and then hit the master button. And now what that does is that when I hit go the next time, that's gonna be the go button to go to Q4. Yeah. At that point, it would also move any of the movers or anything, get that ready for that, so it would be a more natural transition into Q4.
So that workflow again was
Q, then the number you want to go to, master, and then after
When you're
that,
ready.
and then you can do that whenever, and then when you're ready, hit go.
got it.
And again, that just kind of clears the.
And that just cues everything up and tells the
Correct.
machine, like, hey, this is what you're going to
Be
do
ready.
next.
Yep. and it relieves your board out from having to be like, okay, well, maybe you're making adjustments to the queue. Maybe it's tech rehearsal or whatever, and you're still making adjustments to the queue you're in. They don't have to then be like, okay, well, I still have to hit go to Q4 at the end of this and then enter. It just kind of makes it a little bit easier.
Gives the board its own standby command.
Pretty much, yeah. So, let's go ahead. I've already pointed out some of the channel numbers and what they mean already. Let's find. Sorry. Thought that was my bag down there.
Don't mind me.
Oh no, you're.
I'm just gonna rummage through your stuff.
Still your stuff.
No, I apologize. I kicked it earlier, and I was like, oh, it's mine. I don't care.
Oh,
It
no.
was yours. I care a little bit more. One of the things this console does is it lets you know how the channel intensity has changed between different queues. So in this queue right here, 301 through 305, those numbers are all purple. That's indicating that those numbers, that the intensity of those stayed the same throughout the queue before. 306 through 310 are blue. Those mean that those have actually gone up in intensity. And then 351 through 359 are green, which means they've gone down in intensity. And for up and down, blue is sky, green is grass. So, easy way to remember that. Again, the red means that you have manual control over it. The pale yellow means that it's in a submaster. You might come across a white number, where that would actually be, where we could see that is on a channel that has not changed between queues. If I were to re-record that actively in a queue, actually it's very hard to do that nowadays. If I were, there's a function called block. It used to be increasingly simple to make what's called an auto block, which is what you end up doing is recording in this Q5, you would record 301 through 305 at full, even though they've already were supposed to be at full. And then it would remember, okay, well, in this queue, even though I'm at full, I was told to do it twice, basically. What I did is I manually inserted a block, and that changed that number to white. And what that means is that if I go back this queue here, and I said, okay, well, 301 out, update. So, remember, I told the light to go out, and then the way that the recording works, it should go to the next queue, and that light should already be out. Well, because I blocked it, it went back up to full. That's really a more nuanced and more in-depth tool to use a block. The one example where it typically gets used by more people than something specific like that would be a blackout key. A lot of people like to put a blackout, or when they do a blackout, so I'll just do...
Oh, so somebody
go
can't
to queue.
accidentally skip your blackout on the
Yeah.
queues.
So if I do 301 through 514 out, and then record that as 7, and then I would say Q7, and I just type block, enter. Now when I go to Q6, all those numbers are white to indicate, yeah, no matter what changes before this queue, they're going to be at 0. Unless the submaster's up. The submaster will go over queues.
Okay. So this would stop somebody if they accidentally hit it twice or double tapped it, it would keep you from skipping your.
Well, you remember how
Blackout.
yesterday Rowan had those pit lights on and then they stayed on for the rest of Act
Yeah.
2? It would stop that. It would cut them out.
Yeah. In your queue list, you'll see that the block is indicated with a B in this column over here. That little b means that there is an auto block, and that big B means that we did a manual block. So somewhere in Q5, there's an auto block. I think it's on one of the color channels. One thing we can do with this board is we can actually go to blind, and we can do we can press the format key on the table view, or on the channel list here. Sorry, I'll get over here to. No, I'm blocking the recording. We can actually see. We can actually see what's happening between the cues for each of the lights. So we can see that in Q4, 301 goes up to full. There's the color values. Then it goes down to 0. Then it goes back up to full. Then it goes down to 0 again. You can see all that in this spreadsheet view. This is, again, much more of an advanced feature, but it also does help if you are sitting there during a tech rehearsal or whatever and trying to figure out why does this light keep coming on, you know. This is one of those things that, again, it's really great to know because you know where to go now, but it's kind of one of those tools that I don't anticipate this to be your go-to for you're going to go to it when you have a problem. Not
It's more troubleshooting and figuring out why is this light staying on.
Exactly. Yeah. Although this does give me a perfect example or opportunity here. In one of these, I can say, I can go to Q1, and all I have to do in this is hit Q1, enter. I can say 190 full, enter. And in Q1, I say Q9 190 at full, and you can see that it tracks all the way through. But there's Q7, there's that blackout I had. And it will not bring that change all the way through. Now, if I want to undo that change, there's a couple options. One, I can just type 190, add enter, and it's going to undo it. But if I'm not that far into my programming steps, there's actually an undo key. And I click that, and I then just find where I made any type of a change. So 190 at full is the one I want to undo. I click on that. I hit enter. It's going to say, hey, you're undoing a couple of steps. Is that okay? And now it's like I never did it. There's also a redo function. Depending on how many steps you undid, that might be useful, but most times it's just easy to manually type that back in. All right. Any questions over just the different types of cue playbacks? Okay. All right. We already kind of went over color. Were you here for when we were messing with the color picker?
I was not.
Okay. So just to go over it really fast.
But I saw our tech director working on it the other day.
Yeah. In the color picker tab, if you just click on the, helps if I grab a light, 3013, 320. If I just click, I can change the color easily. I can click and drag, and it'll just follow my finger or mouse. And then if I press and hold, and then I drag, it's gonna go in the direction of my of where I'm going.
Okay.
And then you have swatch books here if that's something that you do know. I did also forget to mention that down a little bit further you have standard colors. If you know that you want a specific color temperature, there are some pre-built presets for that. So
Nice.
you also again have those encoder wheels. Given the fact that these are 3-color RGB, those really come in handy because it's just easy to dial in the red, green, and the blue as you need it. Yeah. Let's go ahead and focus on the movers, which I'm sure we'll get a
Get a response.
response. So your movers are programmed into channels 201 and 202. 201 on this side, 202 on that side.
So 201 is house left.
Mm-hmm.
202 is house right.
Yes.
I'm going to be opening a new tab that's called ML Controls. Now I'm going to use the encoders because they are a much easier way of controlling the movers than grabbing my mouse and moving around here, but by opening it we'll get to see some of what it is doing. So first thing, I typed in 201. I'm going to hit focus, and now I can use my encoders that I have mapped over there. You can see the pan and the tilt. Always tilt first, because you can pan. If I have this set to 0, close to 0, and I pan, it's just going to spin around in a circle, and you're not going to really see anything.
So we tilt first.
So tilt first, because pan's just going to continue to go. Let me get that back to 0-ish. So we'll tilt, and then we can pan. There we go. It takes a little bit of trial and error because they're hung at some weird angles, but you'll figure out where you want to get that light. So I'll point it up here where we can kind of see what we're working with. So again, this has all been in focus, and in focus, that's all you have is pan and tilt. You do have a little bit of extra X focus and Y and Z focus, but your primary functions are just going to be pan and tilt. And under color, these mix color a little differently. So it's actually a white light engine that is then using subtractive color mixing as opposed to additive. So instead of red, green, and blue, you actually have cyan, magenta, yellow. So if you bring up the cyan, it's going to look fairly blue, but if you mix in some yellow, that's how you'll get a solid green. Or if I mix in the magenta, I'll get a deep saturated blue.
Now, if we use the color picker over here,
It more so is, again, what you see. So if I go to green, it's going to go to green.
if you do that and then you use the encoders, will it alter?
No. What you can see here is, as I'm moving this around the color picker, it's changing the cyan, magenta, and yellow. So you can bring it over here and then try to fine tune it. It's just going to be a little. You'll have to do some trial and error figuring out how that moves. This is the way that we had to do color mixing for years because you didn't have red, green, blue lights. You had
quiet.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, no, it is quiet. You do have a static color wheel. This is really good for.
That's fun.
This is going to be really good for your saturated red, green, and blue, specifically, and then some of your other colors. These, if I switch between them, you will see it flag through everything. So you're going to see it go. If I go from this red all the way down to this dark blue, it actually took the path of least resistance there. If I go to like purple, it's going to go all the way through that. So it doesn't do as good of a job when you're doing a live color change.
But if I record that cue
And
it's
it's
gonna
not,
come up in the color. It's
Correct.
not gonna go through all of them.
as long as it's in the background been set to that color, so then when it's coming up in that queue, it's just bringing up the intensity. Yeah. You do have the option to have it just cycle through them. That's using the ML controls over here. That's using the spin plus, so it's just spinning through that wheel. It's literally just a wheel with all those colors on it, and it's just spinning around, going in front of the light.
It's a slow wheel.
Well, if you want to increase the speed of that, if you click on the yeah,
There you
That's what I wanted.
when you start the spin, it
Make
actually
sure everything is unsafe.
when you start the spin, you'll have this menu on your encoders down here that says color select, and you can move that to the left to slow it down, move to the right to speed it up.
You can just like DJ that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you could speed it up and then slow it down and then speed it up again. Yeah, you could.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and leave that at open. These do have a color temperature correction because that is a aggressively white.
That's a full moon right there.
If you wanted to make it warmer, you could bring up that CTO channel. You can also do that by hitting color, and that would actually map to one of the encoders, so you can do it that way.
Nice.
Let's go ahead and look at, okay, now that people are gone, I'm going to crank this. First thing we want to, these have shutters in them. So just like an old,
That's
let's
how
sort of,
Rowan made the eyeballs.
you can bring in those shutters, and then if I hit shutter again, I'll get my other top and bottom shutter. Now, I can also change the angle on these shutters, so I can angle them a little bit more, angle that one, the other direction, something like that. If I want to just open all my shutters, I can just come up here to where's shutter? On my ML controls, there's a section labeled shutter. If I just want to open them, I can hit the home icon, and that will just open them all back up. Let's look at, before we look at image, let's look at form. Form is going to be the size and the quality of that beam. So right now, we're zoomed in as far as it goes. I can zoom that out and make that a really wide beam. We're hitting a lot of the proscenium with that, so that's just kind of due to the angle. But if I bring it back in a little bit, now it's a bigger light, but it's a little bit fuzzier, so I also want to adjust my beam edge. And again, so that's under the second encoder, and you just kind of, depending on how zoomed in it is, where it's focused, all of that will play a factor in how far you need to do it to adjust that edge. So that's about a clear, sharp edge all the way around. I can continue going and it will fuzz that out a little bit, or I could go the other way where it started. But right now I want to start with this nice, clean, sharp, in focus circle. The other thing under form, we have an iris. Just bring that circle in a little bit. It's basically the same function as zoom, but there are a couple cases where you might want to actually iris it as opposed to zoom it in and out, specifically if you're using a gobo. So if I hit image, that gets us to our gobo wheel. So the first one we have, oops, not that one. First one we have has all these gobos. Now you can tell they're completely out of focus, so if I wanted one of these and I wanted to see what I was actually working with, I just bring the gobo up, I go back to my form, and I try to find where that's in focus. And of course I chose the glass gobo that will never find a good focus. There's something that we'll find focus on. So now we can see this gobo completely in focus. You can see all the cool designs that are in there. And then you can also rotate these. Now, using the ML controls, what we can do is we can actually make these rotate. Right now they're set to index, which means all we're doing is just choosing the gobo and manually setting the rotation how we want it and leaving it there.
But I can make that rotate
You can have
continuously.
You can have this rotate continuously. What you do is you'll go into ML controls, hit rotate plus or minus, and now your slider or encoder that you were using for rotating it and setting it where you want it is a speed control.
Aha.
So I can have this spin, and now it's just going to spin at that speed.
That's cool.
You also
That's super cool.
Yeah.
you also in
Why have we
ML,
never done this before?
I know.
in ML controls because these are using the standard wheels that were provided with the fixtures. You do have an accurate preview of what these are. Now, if I wanted to, these ones have a second gobo wheel. No, these are the ones with. Yeah, these only have one gobo wheel, but they do have an effect slot with them, so I can actually create a prism. And now, instead of having one of these, I have 5 of these. They're all slightly out of focus. That's kind of just the nature of using the prism. Or I can go and I can duplicate them linearly using that prism. Let's try to get that maybe a little bit more in focus.
Yeah, that makes me want to die.
You're on camera for it.
No, it's not going to get in focus.
I said what I said. Jeffrey's good at editing.
We will do this
I'm
one.
not editing 6 hours of video. I'm stitching
Something
it
else I
together and
can
exporting
do
it.
here is we can spin the effect wheel. So now it's all rotating. So not only is it rotating, but the gobo inside of it is also rotating. And if we change that to this.
But we just need to be aware of our size because it's clipping on the proscenium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we won't have that problem in the theater because they're on the catwalk. But that's how they made water in Covenant Christian show.
Yeah.
Is that how we did
Fun
the,
fact, that's exactly what I was trying to do here.
the weird... Is that how we did the weird thing with, for the mirror?
Yeah. We did that for the rear mirror. Also, those are Cedric lights too.
Who?
Cedric lights.
Oh,
That's how we did these two.
just different color?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
we made
That's
them
cool.
spin and do other stuff. So.
That's sick.
Mhm.
I mean, the great thing is you would never know what that actually is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's 3 or 5 spinning
Yeah.
things in the circle.
Yeah. One of the great things to do with gobos is obscure them. It just adds a lot of texture, and you'll never know.
It adds texture. You can create water, fire, smoke.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because there's so
do we
many,
do this for the bathroom?
we have a blue wash
Okay.
for the
Somewhere here.
bathroom.
We'll talk to Rowan about seeing if we can create movement.
Mhm. Yeah.
movement.
Well, and one of the better things is even though we only have one wheel of gobos,
No,
we
I'm
can
really
change
excited about
so
doing show
many
choir
other
shows.
things
Yeah.
to make them
I
different
mean,
every
how
time.
cool would it be to have these down over the show choir?
Oh, but, I mean, we wouldn't do it for like giant spec, but like when we have our own concerts,
That's, yeah.
do this kind of stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so everything we're doing here, it's just taking a predefined, value. So if I just go ahead and record it, and I'll go ahead and record this as Q8, everything I've done, go back a Q, it's going to recall all of that information of where it needs to go, the gobo, the focus, all of that.
And the reason it moved from house up there is because during that blackout it wasn't positioned
Correct.
for there.
Now, there is a way to get around that, even with a cue that we blocked.
Mm-hmm.
So in this Q7, right now, I'm going to hit format again to expand this out. Everything's at 0, which means that's its home value. If I wanted to preset that for my next cue, typically what I do is I just hit channel 201, which is this like recall from Q8, and you'll see it go to there. Then I'm going to update my Q7. And then what I'm going to do is I'm then going to say 201 out. And then I'm going to update it one more time. And in a way, basically what I've done is I said now in Q7, set the light exactly where I want it to go.
It's gonna move.
And then when I hit go for Q8, it's already in position. It's just waiting to come up.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the way that if you're moving lights, you want to add those into a queue later, and you want to make sure that they don't do that. That's pretty much the steps I do. Is I go to the queue before, I have them recall. I just say 201 recall from queue, and again the queue number before. Enter. I actually even did it 2 steps where I could have just done it 1. I could have just said 201 recall from Q8. Enter, out, enter, update. I didn't have to update twice.
So essentially we were saying 8, we want it to be that. So 7, we want it to be there, but be at 0.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. That's there is a function in this that we can do in Q7. So 201, I'm actually going to... Actually, I'm just going to undo my changes. So we have Q8. It there. There is an automated function in the board that we can utilize. It's just one of those that I've personally not done too much because I just do it the other way. Is it right or wrong? Who knows? I need to find the button because I never use it. It's a function called mark. Channel 201. Where is mark? Right there. Channel 201 mark. And then I can hit update, enter. And basically what it's doing now, should be doing, see, that's why I don't do it.
Yeah, I like the other one better.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Probably because I had it backwards. You do it in Q8. So in that instance, in Q8, I would say 201 mark, and then it would say, okay, well, the next time that channel 201 is out, I'll prepare it for Q8 in that queue. So it's an easier way. I don't know. It's just one of those. So again, that was 201 mark, enter, when I'm in Q8. So, there it is. In Q7, you can see that all of its information is set for Q8. And the one advantage that has is that if I now change where it's going in Q8, it will update Q7 for me to do that.
Oh, okay.
So it's a 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Mark's the easier way, but if you're like me, sometimes you just know the way that you guys aren't. So do it that way. I'm setting my way.
Can I see that one more time? Can you just
Yeah.
walk me through that one more time?
Also, I will undo everything up through record Q8. I want to have my Q8 still there. So again, I'll go back. There's Q7, and right now I'll hit go, and we'll see that happen. And so now I'm going to type 201, mark, enter, and then all I have to do is update, and then enter. And now, if I go back to Q7, it marked it. Really what Mark is doing there is it's finding the next Q that the intensity for 201 is at 0, and setting it there.
Okay.
It's assuming that it's going to be the Q before, because otherwise it's probably in the wrong spot too, but that's what it's doing. And that indicated by the X there that it was marked in the previous Q. So I don't get to do these moving light controls a lot because not many people get them anymore.
Missing out.
That's boring.
It is boring. Alrighty. Questions?
I don't think so.
Let's see. I'm realizing that I should have stopped and used the restroom before we got here.
Oh.
So why don't
One thing. How did you get to this screen?
Was
So
that one
this-
of our apps when we
That was
created a tab or no?
The format button.
to this screen as opposed to this screen?
Yes.
Format.
Format.
So a lot of the tabs have different formats that they can be set up in. Live table, you have, this is live table. You see the spreadsheet table looking thing. And if I hit format, it changes it to live summary, where all that information is very condensed.
Okay.
Saves you some screen space, saves you nonsense that you don't need. Or you might not need, depending on the application.
And then again, how did you get to like the BOGO functions, all that stuff up on top?
So that was using the ML controls.
ML.
So if I change the ML controls tab, it won't show me anything until I type in a light, and then it will show me everything that light has to offer.
Lovely.
Cool.
If I go to one of my RGB pars, it's just going to be that. So, oops, I want to close out of this tab. So, yeah, 201. Oops, 201. It will show everything there. If I have this expanded, it's just going to be condensed to one single line. So.
Okay.
But here it shows you everything, kind of spread out.
And that just comes from hitting that plus, going
Correct.
to our different tabs and picking
Correct.
ML
Yep.
control.
So, tell you what, I'm going to go use the restroom real fast. While I do that, if you guys want to record a couple cues, try recording something, whatever you want to do. And then when I come back, if you have a couple questions over that. So.
All right, cool.
All right. I'll be right back.
We don't have to record you guys trying it
No.
out.
Not unless you want
I wanted to try recording,
I'm gonna go use the phone.
And now it's going to copy everything from channel 201. And then again, the only thing I need to worry about here is adjusting that focus. And so I could do something like get them crossed at the center there. No,
And then recording, let's say I want to record that as
Yeah.
a cue. I was not here when we got to record.
okay, yeah.
So can he tell me? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Record.
Record. and then type the queue number that you want to record to. So I believe 8 was the last one we did, unless someone recorded a 9.
So I do Q9.
Yep, so 9. Enter. And here we'll open up the queue list. No, there it is.
Okay.
And so that recorded with the default times of 5 seconds on everything.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you hit back, the stop back button, sorry. Again, it used to say stop back.
Yeah.
But then go ahead and hit go.
Okay. And if I hit back, can I come in here and just click on my time to change my time, or no?
No.
Okay. How do I what time controls?
Well, sorry, you can't click. You were clicking on the duration. The duration is just set no matter what, telling you how long between all of the times for everything. You can click on the individual. So if you wanted to change the intensity time, click on that big 5 in the circle.
This one.
Yep. Double click it. No. Used to be able to. The easiest way to do it, and the way that I showed them to do, is to type Q, then the number, so Q9, and then time. And then, if you want to change the time of everything, just time and then 2.
That's what I want.
If you wanted to change the time of, since we
There we go. That's what I wanted.
You can do it where it's, if you hit time again, then you could do.
split time between the up time and the down time. So if there's lights coming up and lights coming down, they can happen at different rates. One other thing we didn't touch on, because I wouldn't imagine doing it with color, but I would imagine doing it possibly with the movers, is you can change the time for the focus or for the beam to get there. So you could have it get into its position much faster than, say, the intensity gets up there. It's still not. It's still not something that a lot of people adjust, but to change that, you would do. You would actually click on. And this is why I was confused why it wasn't working, because you do it for the focus and the color. Click on the time in the queue for focus, and then, if I wanted that to be 10 seconds, now, if I hit back, it'll come up, it'll be bright, but it's not in the right spot for 10 seconds.
Gotcha. Okay.
If you want to eliminate that, just hit focus time, enter, and it will default that back to the queue time of 2. That's not something that a lot of people end up doing. It's just there as an option for the fine-tuned control.
Okay. Perfect. I'm gonna run to the bathroom real quick.
Okay.
Sorry.
I had a question.
There's 3 functions that might be very useful for musicals or just straight plays. Delays are useful because what happens with a delay is when you hit go, it waits a little bit and then the cue goes. It's really good if you're timing it with a bump of a song or something like that. The other 2 are an auto follow or a hang. What an auto follow and a hang do is pretty similar. Basically, you go from one queue to the next, and then after a determined amount of time, it goes to the next queue after that. What a follow does is it just starts the queue timing. It starts that timing immediately, and what a hang does is wait for the queue to be finished before going to the next one. So we'll go over those right now. So to program in a delay is actually incredibly easy, mostly because you have a button for it. We'll just edit our existing cue list to accommodate this. Let's say that we wanted to I never took that light out of Q1. Q1, 2, 1, and enter. Update. Okay. So in Q4.5, I want a delay. Maybe I want it because, again, I'm going with the music and it's easier to call and hit the go when there's an audible cue. That's kind of my go-to reason to do a delay. I can just type Q4.5 delay 2. And what I do, what you can see here, is that there's a that when I hit go, which the space bar here can work as a go button, it's going to wait 2 seconds, then it's going to go. You can delay a specific light in a queue. This is really getting in the weeds of queue timings. Basically, everything you can do with a queue timing, you can have every individual light have its own individual timing. Gets really in the weeds, but that's probably the more useful purpose of a delay beyond, again, an audible cue for something. Maybe you want everything to go and then one light to go after, 5 seconds. The other way of doing that would be to have another cue after it to take that light out, or whatever. That would probably be the easier way. And that would be done with a follow or a hang. So let's say we want to go from Q 4.5 to 5 automatically. All I have to do, and again, I'm going to be doing this in the queue that I want to go into the next one. I'm going to type Q 4.5. And I have a soft key down here that says FW/HG. It's soft key 2. FW means follow, and then I would give that a time of however long I want. The duration of my queue here is 7 seconds. So for the example of what a follow and a hang do differently, I'll just do it at 3. And we'll actually see that when I go from Q4 to Q4.5, 3 seconds after I'm in Q4, it's following into the next queue. So Q4.5 never really had a chance of doing anything.
And was that auto follow or was that a hang?
That was an auto follow. Follow is technically more correct. It used to be called auto follow, and so old terminology, they just call it a follow now. Same thing. If I want to get rid of a follow, all I have to do is, helps if I type Q4.5 first. Q4.5, follow, enter, and that gets rid of it, since I didn't tell it anything after that. If I did a hang, all I have to do is press the follow button twice, and now I'll do that with a hang of 3 seconds, and so in that column it's going to have an H3 now. If I hit go, it's going to run through the queue with the delay that we put in there, and it's going to wait for that timing to be all done before then going. You can basically still add those numbers together and make a follow work, but a hang is just a different way of doing it.
But a hang gives you a nice, like a cleaner crossover.
Yeah, because then if you change
I'm
the...
gonna have row one. We're gonna come in and edit a lot of those sorting cues.
Yeah.
That way I don't have to call auto follows.
Yeah. If you change the timing of your queue here, you don't have to worry about changing the timing of your follow or your hang afterwards. If you know you want that to happen no matter what, 4 seconds after the queue, you don't have to go, okay, well, now that queue's a 10-second fade, so I guess the follow is really going to be 14 seconds. You just go, okay, great. It'll 4 seconds after the queue is done with all of its transition, then go. One of the last things, and this might be useful for might have been useful for probably what you're doing is a loop. And that's where you have a sequence of cues and you're just going to loop between them, whether indefinitely or on a set amount of cycles. It's definitely one of those, when you need it, and you'll probably want to grab that workbook and go use it. But just to quickly show you kind of how that works, the thing that you do first is you have to link a cue to another cue. Basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link Q7 here to Q4. So I'm going to type Q7, and that gives me the button down here for link loop. I'm just going to click that there. I'm going to link that to Q4. And then what's going to end up happening here is that when I go to Q7, and then I hit go, I'm also going to change all my timings of these keys real fast. 4 through 7, time 2, because I don't want to sit here for Q5 is annoying here. There we go. Okay. Now when I'm at 7, it goes back to 4. Then I go through this. Go through this. Now, the problem is, as you can probably tell, you have to get out of this somehow. Links, you tend to, if you do it backwards, you're going to get caught basically in a loop. At that point, what you want to do is you want to create you want to add how many loops you're going to have. If I leave that blank, which I haven't told it how many loops to do, it's going to just continue. It's just going to keep going back and forth, back and forth. So in Q7, what I need to do is I need to Q7 link loop. Again, hit the button twice to get the second function. Tell it how many times I want that to happen. So now, when I go through this, it's going to loop 2 times, and then after the second loop, we're out of that sequence. Now, the example that they then have us do in this, which I won't do, they have us go through and add follows to all of these, and you then can see it just go infinitely, and then basically what happens is after you hit go the next time, it's just going to skip ahead. It's not very functional, but it's there. The other thing, which I don't know why you would do it, why you would program your show this way, is you can link to a cue later. So let's get rid of, on Q7, let's get rid of the link. So I'm just going to hit Q7, link, done. And it's going to get rid of the loop when I do that as well. If I do Q4, link 7, now what's going to happen when I am in go to Q4, when I hit go, I'm going to skip to Q7. Why you would do that, I still don't know. But someone sure somewhere has done it, because otherwise you wouldn't.
The workflow is there.
The workflow's there. I've never programmed on Broadway. But I love to, absolutely.
That you would like. You would like all the time.
Yeah. We've been using the update function. One thing that we could do, so again, I'm going to go type, I'm going to go to Q1. Bring our house lights up. And again, let's just, for fun, I'm going to bring up 201 at full. And I want this to be white. What I'm doing is I'm selecting on the touchscreen here the different parameters, color, image, and then I'm hitting the home button to set them back to their default values. I'm just choosing something random. Let's say this is what I want in my Q1, and I only ever want this in Q1, and I don't want to have to go through and make sure that in Q2 I took this back out. What I can do is I can actually update then hit this queue only button. It says queue only track. I don't know why they did not put like a slash there, like they did with the address patch button, but they didn't. If I hit that, what it does is it puts update queue only in my command line. And now when I hit enter, that is only recorded into Q1. So I go to Q1, it's gonna make its move, and then when I hit go again for Q2, instead of leaving that light up, it's actually gonna fade it out.
Love that.
So
And you didn't press anything, even though it has 2
right.
items of text. You
So
didn't
it
have to
actually
shift or anything.
is because we can. Now I've recently. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. When we're in tracking mode, like we are right now, which is a harder setting to change, that functions as a queue only button. If we were in queue only mode, it would function as a tracking function on a channel by channel basis.
I see.
So, yeah, tracking and queue only really starts to get you into the weeds of preference. I was taught and have done all my shows queue only. Then people like, I know Lisa Lewis was just here. She loves, with Cornerstone, she loves tracking. I know tons of people who love tracking, and I know tons of people who hate tracking. It's just 6 of one, half a dozen the other. So I've tried to stop pushing my bias on people because there are some legitimate advantages.
Yeah.
So I told you we would get to park. I've already explained what park does, but how do you know it's parked? Well, if you just double click the park button, you'll get the park tab open, and it will tell you what channels you have parked, and it will tell you what you have them parked at. I have 901 and 902 parked at full. You can park a light or a channel, you can park that at 0. And what that would do, let's say one of those 2 movers started having a problem, and for whatever reason it was just strobing or flashing, whatever, you could park it at 0. So that way, now you'd have a lot of things that you would want to do. You'd have to do 201 out, and then you would also probably want to go in and say, okay, also your tilt, at least your focus here, also park that. You'd want to go through and park those at 0, so that way that's also not moving. But if you had one of your LEDs going on the fritz and having an issue, you could just park it at 0, and that would stop it from acting up. Now, yeah, you're down a light, but at least it's not distracting.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do that while we're playing other cues?
Yeah. This would, this is would be more of a temporary fix for that. So like if it's just, this is hey, I need to get that light off. I don't want to take it out of my cues. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna get it taken care of. This would be all right, park it at 0 and let's move on.
So that's if we have a glitch.
Yeah.
That way, it's even if it ends up in the queues,
Yep.
it's not gonna do anything when
Yep.
it comes up.
Or I actually have done it this way where this was a bad time for me as a designer, but me and the director were he had me program in this one special in so many cues, and I went, I think we're gonna cut that. And I was like, okay. So we had the rehearsal where he cut it, and I was like, I'm not taking it out of all my cues, and I was too lazy to climb up to unplug the light, so I just parked it at 0. And then he went, no, we're adding it back, and I was like, yeah, I would have had to reprogram every cue.
There.
So temporarily. To unpark something in the park menu, all you have to do is type the channel number. So if I want to unpark 301, because I have it currently parked, I type 301 at enter. And then When I hit clear, you'll see that it goes away from the park menu. You don't have to go into the park tab to do that. I could type 301 full park, enter, and now it's parked. And I could just as easily go 301 park, enter. And it will say, hey, do you want to unpark? And I go, yep. So. We are going to actually be done here really soon, besides just extra questions if you have them. We've already gone over the file menu. The last part of this is really, really nitty-gritty. Stuff just so you know where it is on the board. I don't anticipate you touching almost any of this. However, knowing where it is half the battle. This is all laid out in the workbook, so you can easily reference this at any point. I'm just going to grab this mouse because it's a lot of just me clicking around here. This is all in your settings in the show software. Do I anticipate you touching any of this? Probably not. But you have a system settings menu. This is all stuff that no matter what show you're in, this information, these settings will carry over. System settings include number of channels. It's set to 5,000 by default, and I would never change it. I would never change anything on the screen unless you have some exact reason you want to. People have done system startup macros before where they make sure that, 901 and 902 are parked. I don't recommend putting a macro in there, though, because it just, especially in a situation like this, it automates something where it's a really good idea to start teaching people, like, hey, just make sure that this is done. It gives your board ops a pre-show checklist. It gives someone, and it also removes the it just works mentality. If this was maybe a church where you have a bunch of volunteers, that might be something. Queue settings. This is all the default times. Again, they are all set to 5 seconds. Some people don't like 5 seconds and they like 3 seconds, and I totally get it. And I probably would change it myself. And I won't say this as an honest suggestion, but I will say that I've heard it, and personally I would do it. I've seen people change their queue times to something like 2.9. And the reason is, if they see a 2.9 in their queue list, they know they never confirmed that queue timing. And that's why they changed it to 2.9. Because that way, hey, I might like that it's about 3 seconds long, but I did not confirm it. And so, you always have that kind of second guess, or second, that, yeah, you know that's there. In your show control, do you guys use QLab?
We are using Q.
We're using QLab for this show.
So you can link this console over the network, or through a network cable using that second port on the back to to the Mac that's running QLab. If you wanted to, I wouldn't do it this late in the show, but the next show.
That would have been great a couple months ago.
The next show, you can.
Next year.
Yeah.
I've done shows, Anderson University somewhere, where they really like it, where now it requires your cues for sound and lights to be numbered the same. So you might have a bunch of empty cues for sound and a bunch of empty cues for lights dispersed throughout the show, but you would end up just linking them together, and now the light board can fire QLab, or QLab can fire the light board. I tend to like it the other way around. I tend to like the light board to fire the QLab cues, and then, if there's a board up running the sound levels, that's...
That would have been wonderful.
Yeah.
That would have been wonderful in January.
So, if you go to do that, this is where you find it, and then there's lovely help articles on ETC's website on how to do that.
Perfect.
Output, that is those DMX ports on the back. This would be if you take this console and you want to go plug it in somewhere. This is where you would plug in. This is how you would make sure that you know what those are assigned to. DMX universes start go every 512 addresses. So in the patch where I had 1/1, this is actually, or sorry, like 2/1 or 3/1. That's actually 1025. For obvious reasons, I don't like thinking of big numbers. I like thinking in the smaller numbers. That actually is what the light on the back would tell you. So you can pretty much think of it as port 2/1. This is all set up to do it in that way automatically, so you don't have to worry about it. You did not get any type of an iPad or ETC, any type of a remote for this. However, if this was to be hooked up through your guys' IT to be on either the building's network or set up with a router or access point or whatever, you can use an app on your phone. It's $50 because it, one, donates to a charity, and two, as a very expensive lockout to deter people from, I don't know, connecting to random light boards. I would. I was tempted at IRT. I had it on my phone, and I was like, oh, I'm on their Wi-Fi. Oh, yeah, I could mess with the board up right now. And I was like, no, I shouldn't do that. They would know it's me. But yeah, so if you were to do that, it's already enabled, but if for whatever reason you were having connection issues, good place to check. Partitions, don't worry about. Users, we'll get into the settings that users have in a moment, but you can set up different users for, if you have things the way you like it, you have things the way you like it, you have things the way you like it. You can create multiple different users. You just assign them a number. You can give them a name then so that you know what that means, and that will change the user settings that we're about to get to. And then augmented is, that tab is just there to tell you that augmented is enabled. It's a 3D visualizer software we don't cover in the training. There are videos and tutorials on how to do that. Otherwise we'd be here, well, one, I'd have to learn how to do it, and two, we'd be here the next whole day. Users, remember how I said tracking and queue only are two of the record modes? That's under user settings because that's something that some people like and some people don't. So to change it, you would go to user settings and click on that box and change it. I don't recommend changing it after you've already started recording because as my lighting design final showed, that causes a problem. Yeah, I had a bunch of random blackouts. I was like, what happened? And actually it's because I had recorded in tracking and then it went to queue only, and that's why now I decided that I was just going to stick to queue only. You can get rid of the confirmations on recording over things and deleting things. Don't, but you can. If you really hate those. Manual control, so right now when you type in a channel and you say go to full, it all happens at a time of 0. Don't change that. Unless you're, I don't know, doing this on the fly all the time, in which case maybe, but remember I said the level button is set to 80. This is where that level button is set, as well as the plus and minus I said were 10%. You can change those in here if you want. I don't. Your default sneak times, go to queue times, back, all of those times are all over on that default time tab over there. The highlight and low light presets, those have to do with you would choose like a preset value for, it's an advanced function that we don't cover in this training. But if you ever were looking around and we're like, oh, I heard about that highlight function and I want to use that, this is where you set what that highlight looks like and what that low light looks like. What a highlight and low light does is that if I said 301 through 320 at full, and then I said, okay, highlight, it would then start at 301, it would set that one to the highlight, which I would say is like a white, and it would set everything else to a low light, which I would put it like a blue. And then I could hit next, and it would bring up the next one, and next, and then, you know. So as I'm doing that, it would make one white and the rest blue, and then it'd bring up the next one at white and change the first one back to blue, and so on and so forth. Under device, visible to remotes, hey, there's another spot for remotes to not be, they are enabled here, but this is basically saying, is a remote device going to automatically find the console, or does it have to manually enter the information, kind of like a hidden SSID. And then you can also change the device name. The random string of letters afterwards, yeah, it doesn't mean anything. This one used to be Davis, and that one used to be Ben.
Nice.
You can change how sensitive those encoders are, based off of the percent in degrees per revolution. I can disable the spacebar go that I enabled earlier, which makes this spacebar here on the keyboard work as a go. I've totally done it where I had to run sound over there, and all I had to do was hit go. That's all I ever had to do, so I just ran a long USB cord over there, and I just had this in front of me. I've done it. I don't recommend it. So there's just a bunch of settings in here. Fader wing layout, we don't need to worry about. Brightness settings, we do want to worry about, because that is the only place to turn that little light down. It is a task light. It is the desk lamp. There is a delay. This is the only place to put it down. So, you can't assign it to a fader. Don't ask me, I've tried. It also can change the brightness of the buttons. It can change the brightness of, and the contrast of that. You can set different presets for how bright everything is. You can also hit this extinguish button, and then until I press a button anywhere, it will turn everything off and look off. But yeah, that's all your settings. That's a really boring, nitty gritty. There's all that. Sorry that I had to go through that. Any questions over that?
Sorry, how did you get there?
Yes. In the browser, underneath, it's down past file, in that setup, and then once
System settings.
system settings, or if you basically, it gives you the option in this to go between them. But once I was there, I could, or I could just click on if I know I want to go to user settings.
Okay.
Okay.
Have we gotten the right time set up yet?
No, we have not.
Okay.
We'll circle back to that,
Okay.
because the last thing I want to show you is a really quick introduction to effects, so that you know what the effects in this board does. I know I actually followed the workbook, which I should have done that before I went to that. The board has a couple of options for effects. You do have some moving lights, so you'll actually have a lot more access to them than most people. I typically show them the one rainbow effect and say, yeah, there you go. That's your example. Because the intensity ones, while they work, tend not to be a one-size-fits-all for most people. We can set, let's say I had 301 through 3, we'll do 359, we'll do all of the lights. I want those to be a rainbow. I want them to be just a color chase between all of them. We can do that without having to program every single light and program time using an effect. Now, by double-clicking the effect button, I see the 718 pre-programmed effects that this board has to offer. Now, a lot of these will be a very good starting point if you have an effect that you want to do to then manipulate afterwards. So, a little bit of this comes down to memorizing what these are, because unfortunately, when I'm in this screen here, and then I go back to live, it goes away. I have to remember that I want effect 917, that's my rainbow effect, So I'm going to say 301 through 359. Effect 917. Enter.
That's freaking awesome.
So
That's great.
cool.
Now, with this effect running, we can see, and I'll go into the live table view. My red, green, and blue are all looking at E917. And it's just cascading down. When I click effect, I have my line command line cleared, and I click effect, I can see 917 is running. It's currently manual. I have not recorded it to anything. I can see what it's affecting, and then I can see all the way over here the rate and the size of that effect. So if I open 301 through 359, and I open my color picker, oops, 301 through 359, there's all the lights going around that.
Wow.
That's just fun to watch.
So if I hit effect 9, and then I type in 917 to select the effect that's running, I can now use my encoders. I have size and rate. The rate, I can't have both active at the same time. The size, let's go ahead and decrease that, and then I'll type in 301 through 359, and now you can see that triangle shrunk down in size.
So now it's only hitting the white
Correct.
Versions of those
Yeah,
colors.
it's a really, really pastel versions of those colors. So I can make that bigger. I can make that so large that now all I'm hitting is the red, green, and the blue. Everything in between is just out. So I'll bring that back down to where we can see it. But I can also change the rate. So right now our rate is set at 100%. If I spin it to the right, now it's faster. If I spin it to the left, now it's slow. Now one of the cool things that you can do, I'll speed the rate back up. I'll get it a little bit faster than normal. One of the cool things you can do is you can actually lower the size of an effect. Okay, so this is all set to white. Sorry about that. Oops. 301 through 359. Okay, well, it's all kind of around here. Well, let's say I wanted it to be more of in the blue area. I can just kind of click over. One, two, three, 5, 9. Color. It's kind of easier to do with the encoders. I can kind of just move it around where I want that by taking out some of the other color. So if I wanted it kind of in the blue-green area, take out some red. And now instead of it sitting around that white, it's now moving more in this area over here. You can really kind of fine-tune some of those as you're programming. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, but and this is one of those that you'll sit here and be like, you know, this is fun, and spend an afternoon messing with it to then go, okay, I don't know how am I gonna ever incorporate this into a show.
Yeah.
But I can do it, so that's the cool part. To stop an effect, well, actually, here, let's just go ahead and record this into a queue. We'll make this queue 10. I don't remember where we ended. But it's important to know that it remembers that rate, it remembers the size, it remembers that I leaned into that. It remembers all that information. Now, when I'm in the queue, if I say, okay, well, I still want to change the size of it, I can hit effect, and now I can see that, okay, effect 917, the source is Q10. Let's just change the 917. Oh my god, I really messed that one up. I can change the size, and I can make that a larger effect. And then I can update the effect into the queue. And again, I can just confirm that it's there. And now, when I go back, now it's going to be that saturated color fade. There's an example in here of how to make a step-based effect. I recommend just going through that on your time to make sure that. And then, if you're looking for lightning, if you're looking for that, there's tons of people who have already figured it out. They've published it on, Control Booth or Backstage News or whatever form of choice. That I'm sure if you just do a quick Google search of ETC or ion lightning effect, someone will go, hey, I got one. Here's the steps. Here's what I did.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
It's one of those that knowing how to build it yourself is great, but sometimes it's just so much easier to go find someone else's. Because what is art if not completely derivative and taking someone else's work? No, I've never done that. Okay. Any questions? Because there's one more section that is just your eyes are gonna be glazed over because you're bored.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with programming. It has nothing to do. It's more board maintenance. I'm gonna go to my file browser and hit exit, not power off device. That's gonna get us back to the shell. And again, this is me really just showing you. Oh, because I stopped with a queue running, everything just kind of stopped in the middle there. This is where you can change your time. What time is it?
It is
It's 12:12.
2:12.
Too late.
I got it.
2:12.
2:12.
Who wants to give me the seconds?
26.
Oh god. Well,
32.
I wasn't fast enough. Because I clicked on the wrong box. We'll just go with 40.
No, 40 right now.
Sweet. Change that because you could do it Eastern or Indiana East. It doesn't matter. It all's the same. Monitor arrangement. If you add a second monitor, you're going to want to come down here to the monitor arrangement, and
Depending where it is.
yeah, depending where it is, one, you're going to want to enable it. When you do hit apply, it will then turn that monitor on, and then you can drag it around. If you have two monitors and you want to see which one's what, hit identify. It'll tell you. You can calibrate the touchscreen if there is a touchscreen. This one's already been calibrated. And then when you're done, hit apply. And then keep changes. I'm going to not make any changes. Software updates are more and more common nowadays than they ever were. Boards used to just basically go in and you never touched it. They're not as necessary as you might think. However, it will be something that sometimes if you have a problem, you might get the call. You might call and say, hey, I'm having this issue. They might go, well, what version are you running? And 5 years down the road, they're going to go, why are you still running version 3.1.5? They're going to go, you need to update your board because that was a bug that we had and we fixed it. So the software update is done through here. You put a flash drive in, it will extract the files, it will run the updater, and all of that. Under network, here's your port 1 is the main network port that you're going to want to plug into. It already has everything set to where it should be for everything you might need, including the Wi-Fi remote. I did enable that in case you were to ever add a Wi-Fi router or something, so that way we can talk about what would be needed for that to work. So that's just there. If you wanted to use the second port though to connect to your Mac for QLab, this is where you can change its IP settings and all of under maintenance. The couple times a year, or I guess every couple years, more accurately, when you want to save some disk space, what you're going to want to do is go to maintenance and go to backup show archive. And what you're going to want, you could either do everything or latest. And my recommendation would be latest. That's just the last show file of it, each one. At that point, I'm assuming that you don't need all of the different versions in between. Save those to a flash drive, and then when you're done, you can offload those, and we'll go into the file manager, and I'll show you how to delete show files if you needed. You can also restore a show archive. So this is something I've only done when we have to swap a board for a loaner situation, but I'll do a backup of the show archive, and then I'll put the loaner in, and I'll restore the show archive to their temporary board. You can do the same thing for system settings. Face panel test, if you have any issues with any buttons, do know that you can open this face panel test, and there's a couple tabs here just to click on the buttons, move the encoders and all that, and it will tell you if something's not working. Do I anticipate you doing that for fun? No, but if there's hey, this button only works half the time, and you're wondering if you're going crazy or if the button's not working, there's a way. Besides that, the only other thing in here that to show you, now there's not a whole lot of use for it for your system because we're not using exclusively ETC's gear due to part shortages and availability and some of the other things that we respect, is Concert. But I do need to show you what Concert is. It's a software that ETC adds into all of their consoles. A laptop, Mac, or PC can also run it and tie into the network. If I open a network map, it's going to find all of the ETC devices on this network, and it's going to graphically lay them out for us so that we can see what each one of those is reporting. So in here, we have the 2 sensor racks, the 2 dimming racks, and then we have the 2 architectural processors. And if they had any errors on them, it would appear down here and it'll tell you what that error is. This is also where, now this might be, it's a 6 of one, half a dozen the other situation here for you to change those relays upstairs. If you take one out and you want to change it to a relay module, again, 6 of one, half a dozen the other, you can do it on the face panel up there, which we'll get to, or you can do it from the software here, and you can upload the change. The thing is, you're already there.
You're already upstairs.
But at the same time, if you're doing a couple of them, this might actually be faster because you're not working with a keypad. You're working with a keyboard and mouse. In this, what you would do is you would click on the one that you're changing and just change the module type from a dimmer and find relay and change that to an R20. Again, R stands for relay, 20 amp breaker. And then the AF is advanced feature, but that's everything you have is an advanced feature module. And then you would hit apply changes and you would upload the change. We're not doing that today, but if you have questions over Concert, feel free to call and ask. When you're done in the shell, you hit accept, you go back to primary, and then you're done. You're back in the show. And that effect's still going to be running.
Perfect. Wow.
Yeah. So we'll go to queue out. Again, this works this way. I can't turn house lights on. I can't change them from here. But it doesn't work the other way. If I set these house lights to off, I can still control them here. I don't know why. I've never seen that, where it only works one way, but we'll figure that out. I will work on that. Let's go ahead and head upstairs. Let's just look at the dimmer racks a little bit more closely. since we don't have everyone with us. And then we're done.
We're gonna be brain dead for rehearsal.
Not me.
Not you.
I'll be up and ready.
Yeah,
Because I'll be moving my body.
You've been sitting around all day. The rest of us have actually been working.
Oh, I've been walking around as much as y'all have.
They just
You guys have been
keep
paying
coming on
attention
time.
though.
Yeah.
Double nodded them every time. Alright. Let's head upstairs. I guess I should have probably got one anyway. Otherwise, we'll end up floating around. Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, band came through.
Oh, they have confidence, I know that.
Got a key for this door?
Maybe.
Maybe?
We'll find out.
I do.
You have a concert today?
Said that she would have to leave at 6 for our concert. So,
Whoa.
but she's been here like.
Yeah.
That's right, the light switch is all the way on the other side. I'll be right back. Oh, I also almost forgot the follow spots. We'll want to look at those here in a little bit too,
Oh, yeah.
while we're up here. So, let me go through these on.
No English press.
All right. Oh, one thing to note about these racks and their doors. If I go to open a rack and there's a door closed next to it, it's only going to open so far. So, not really a big concern when you're not changing modules, but when you're changing modules, probably best to open the one next to it so that you can get that full swing. So on this processor, that's probably why. Okay. On this processor here, on each one you have a network port that you can plug in a laptop if you needed to. You're on the phone with us at that point. USB key to download the configuration or upload a configuration if there's ever a need to do that. Again, you're on the phone with us at that point. You have a power indicator, 2 DMX indicators. Those should be off. We've disabled DMX. 2 of these are just running off of the network. A panic indicator, that should never be on. There's nothing hooked up to it, so if it is, there's a problem. And then your network indicator should flash constantly. Each one will tell you the IP address that it is assigned to. They are all assigned separately, even though these ones don't actually talk to those ones over there. We just wanted to make sure that there was no potential IP conflict. On them you have a test button. You can set the levels for the circuits here locally. again, kind of like park, you can do that on or off. So I can set circuit 97 to always be on by typing 97, enter 100, 100, and now it's set to full. It's hard to see, but there's a green light up there. Now that circuit's on. I can hit the off button on the touchscreen, I can hit the blackout button on the board, I can do whatever, it's stuck on because it is set here. When I set a level here and I go to walk away from it, when I hit the back button, it will say, do you want to release the set levels, yes or no? If you say no, they will stay on while you continue to navigate through the menus. If you do hit yes, it will just release it. If you did what I just did and said no, and now you want to release it, there is a release system levels button down here, and it releases all the set levels. These racks technically can store their own presets. They are different than the button station presets. We are not going to worry about those. Under About, this is where you will find your errors. That's the most important thing. If there's an error here, it will populate here, and you can document that, call us, and let us know what the error is, and we can find the best course of action. You can also see about certain dimmers. So if I want to know what dimmer 97 is set to, I can type, it starts at 97 for this rack. I can see that it is set to 0 right now. It's source SACN, that is the network protocol that these are listening for. That's the only thing it should ever be listening to. The only other thing that could be there is local level, which would be if it was set like I have just set the local level before. And then the control mode is dimmable, so this works as a dimmer right now. If I wanted to change this over from a dimmer module to a relay module or vice versa, what I would do is I would hit setup, dimmers. It would start me at 97, again because this rack starts at 97. And then I could change the module type, go down to relay, and change that to an R20 AF. And now it will also change that to switched mode, which means that it is on or it is off. That's all it means by switched. And I would take that module out, I'd put a relay in there, and I'm done. Now 97 and 98 only work as on-off power, not dimming power. If I want to change that back, set module type, and then change it to a dimmer, and change it to a D20 AF. And there you go. If you ever were to get to the situation where, alright, worst case scenario, you're doing a show in the theater, one of those racks dies, you need to get, you're not doing anything in the auditorium, call us, but we'd go, okay, well, we're going to walk you through removing the module from here, putting it in over there. To remove a module, you pull down on these black tabs on either side, push towards you, it stops out. And then when you go to put it back in, just firmly push on both sides until you hear a click. There you go. And we would be able to get you the configuration you need over into that module over there. It would take some reconfiguring, we'd be able to do it, but that would be the quickest and easiest way in the case of I have a show in 20 minutes and one of these processors just failed on me. The only thing is, if you had a processor fail, there might be a reason, and you might run into that situation where you're like, I don't care, I've got 20 minutes, I'm gonna try everything. So, alright, let's go look at these follow spots. Let's do the auditorium follow spots.
I would not go with lights.
I didn't know which.
Do I?
Right here, that light switch. Thank
We're
you.
going up here, guys.
We're gonna do the auditorium follow spots first. They are two different follow spots.
What?
I don't know. You can ask them about this.
So use the horse spotlights up here now.
So, simple operation. If there, oh, it's not like that.
Wild place for.
This is where we store all our holiday stuff.
I can tell.
Hi, Santa.
Are you never gone up here before?
The one time I was up here, so I was trying to find Fraley and
Yeah.
came right up to the door right as you were coming out. I said, whoa.
So, these follow spots, they have a dowser. It actually is a dimmer on these. It's that front knob right there. You have an iris, and then you have a gate. Gate kind of acts as a chopping motion. You can just gate off that light from the top and the bottom. You can iris it in. On the front, Santa's in my way, but you have the adjustment for the optics to move that, to make that beam brighter or dimmer.
Come here. Come here. Come on, caught.
Yeah.
Here. Come here. Come on, Chris.
So there I can change how that looks. Turn it towards me to loosen it so that it slides more freely, and then lock it down. Now, sorry.
There you go.
You have you actually have that on both sides. Yeah, this is just not the optimal setup here. You also have color flags on this side here to drop gel in front of this. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's currently set to manual control, which is probably exactly how you want it to be. You want someone running the follow spot and being in control of it. This one does have the ability to plug in through DMX and be controlled that way. I have yet to figure out why.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Some people like it. Here's the DMX cable that goes with it.
Okie doke.
I would not leave it on top of it like we are, but for right now. And then you have another one over on the other side. Now, you do have slightly different follow stop for the theater.
Trey, what are you doing up here? What are you doing up here?
This is where I normally come from.
Can't get in?
Wow.
Push the door, dude. Oh, this would be one of the, we can't get in here.
Going down, up, and around.
Looks that way.
There you go.
You got the master key.
How do you have a key that I know? Which one is that? What's it labeled?
WM.
I have an MW. Well, what the heck?
All right, who's got the key to this one?
Me. Or let's see.
Maybe that's why I can't get in stage right. Yeah, I can get in here.
No, I
One
can't
of
get the
those.
stage right either.
That one on
Yep.
Auditorium.
Yep.
All right.
Can I shut this? Really?
Yes, please.
Where's the power up here?
It's over. There might be one there. Nope. No.
There's an outlet on your left, way down there.
Let's see.
I hope this bad boy reaches.
Yeah.
Let's stay here.
There you go.
Watch your step.
All right. So this is also an LED follow spot. Same brand, just different model. I'm just gonna. Power on this one is over on the left side. So this here is the gate for this one. Here is your color. This green knob on this side over here, that is your edge adjustment, as well as this one here being more of your, it's a little hard to see through the house lights. So here we have a nice solid beam, and again, your different colors, and then zoom on this back handle here, and so there's my dimming of that right there on the top. Now, I haven't done an A/B comparison. I don't know if that one right next to you is brighter. It very well might be. I don't know. One thing I was going to say before, but I shut my mouth before I said it around Powers and Sons and everyone. Spotlights are one of the few things that the move to LED doesn't benefit as great, because how often do you use a follow spot? You're not getting the same power savings because you're using it for a couple hours at best. So if you do find that one right there is, this is just what was.
I've always used that one.
It doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't look. They got the same functions. That one does have a dimmer bar on it that you can dim it.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they don't.
It's one of those that you currently have 3 sets of follow spots. If I were in your shoes and I'm covering every possible branding I could possibly associate with anyone, use whatever one suits you the best. Because the energy savings, I mean, long term, yeah, this is going to save a bunch of money, but
Yeah.
over the course of a few years, a few
Right.
shows, gonna.
Yeah.
Did they add? It seems like the last time I remember being in here it was hot.
Yeah, it was. I don't know
That
what they
will run.
did to fix
That
it.
will run significantly cooler. There's that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is very
Yeah.
true.
We unplugged that.
You want to leave it plugged in, or?
No.
Unplug it that way. When Maggie gets up here later, it's not a thing.
So, alrighty. Anything else you guys want to need any more input on? Anything you wanted to revisit? Feel like we didn't get to?
No, I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was really good.
Oh, I did forget it in our walkthrough. There's a floor pocket in like the second or third row of seats in the house. It has 2 network ports that you can plug your console and, touchscreen. Again, table position.
Yeah.
Just a thought of that. Oh, and there's a DMX port and a button station in the orchestra pit
Okay.
to turn on. I believe it's house lights. No, it's work lights down there. Yeah, turn on work lights. Duh. And then plug in a light down there if you need it. So.
Okay.
Alright.
All right.
Sweet.
Alrighty.
Well, thanks, man.
Hey,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'll go grab my stuff. I won't probably have an answer on why that button is, because I'm gonna have to send my configuration off and have someone check it. So I will figure out why that console control button is not working the way I expect it to. But when I figure that out, I will. We'll have to come back to those locks on
I
that.
would not touch it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Again, Jeffrey, I would not touch it.
Throw it in the trash.
Alright. Send them that one. Thank you so much for all your time. I know it was a long day.
It's one of the things I plan to bring down to put on the
Yeah.
set.
It's yellow.
Love that. Can you go down this way? My stuff's in the booth.
Yeah, my stuff is down in the
Okay.
auditorium. But yeah, you can go down that way.
Yeah, I'm going to this.
I have my stuff, so you go get stuff.
Okay.
I need to use this time before rehearsal to go
Yeah.
to the home store and things like that.
Are you going to the party store?
I need to go to Party City, and I gotta go to the home store because I want to look at rugs for the set. So I'm gonna put a big yellow rug down on the middle.
That's gonna look really cool. And I saw they're working on painting the doors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're gonna paint the doors, and then we're gonna stain all the 2x4s
Okay.
to make it a little darker wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then we might just be doing black all the way up through those sliding doors.
Yeah.
But we're probably not gonna paint it until Wednesday.
My stuff's over here.
Oh, but mine is too. We're probably not gonna paint that all middle part till Wednesday, because since we don't have rehearsal, we can let it